Okay, yes, now we're live. Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Saturday Free School. So, today we're going to begin our discussion by talking about this beautiful weekend we had celebrating Anthony Monteiro's 80th. And this event was titled Our Beautiful and Beloved Struggle. And today we'll be, going back and really assessing what this event, meant to celebrate this history in this time and what we learned from it, what are our lessons going forward. And then we'll go back to our discussion from 2 weeks back where we we're talking about really the political foundations of the free school and why we think that the free school really is a model in this time in the revolutionary process in America. So I'll ask Purva to begin the discussion.
Okay. It's been hard to collect thoughts because I feel like even though the event was a 2 day thing, we've been preparing for it for close to 2 or 3 months. And I just wanted to start by saying that, I mean, at many points, Doc has expressed that when this idea was proposed, he wasn't the happiest to have a celebration of his 80th birthday. But I wanted to begin by saying that I think it was very important that we did it. And I'm very happy that we did it because, I mean, we're living in a society and we're living in times when the only things that are celebrated is celebrity or clout or performative you know performative people. And I think we should take every single opportunity to actually set the record straight and point out who is to be honored and what is to be celebrated as a commitment to the struggle for the future, because what we celebrate is what we become as a people. These are the standards we set for ourselves. And I will talk about the event, but I wanted to even start uh, before the event, in the process of all of its various parts that were coming together. We interviewed Doc. Some of us also went to the NYU archives to research Doc's time at the in the communist movement, and we also put together a list of a selection of his writings from various periods of his ideological and political trajectory. And through all of this, like this entire process was a very rich experience for all of us. And for me personally, it was a way to connect with that revolutionary time that we read about, but you have to have those concrete touchstones to understand how actual human beings, made this history through choices, through transforming their lives, of which Doc is one person who we get to talk to, who we get to learn from. And why this felt so significant is that for our generation, we've only known a world of counter-revolution and war and cynicism. And even when you have these high aspirations that we're going to work for society, we're going to give our lives to something more than just our own lives, you're always discouraged. You're always encouraged to think in small or narrow terms and never to fly. And I think we have a very difficult relationship with history itself because we are taught history. And I know in my case, and this must be true for everybody else, we are also taught to be proud of history to some extent, but we're never really taught to use history or to see the world through a historical lens, and definitely never to consider that we could also become part of history. And especially doing the interview with Doc, which is the thing I think I was the closest to, I think for the first time I concretely felt like I was connected to history in a real way through Free School, which, yes, it came into existence in 2012, but it's really much older than that because it's picking up that unbroken thread of a struggle waged by Black people in this country to change this country, to remake the American people, but also to give new civilization, new art, new music, new standards of men and women to the world. And so this was a very important and concrete process leading up to the event. And I also wanted to say that Shambarto said the title of the event, which was Our Beautiful and Beloved Struggle. And I think this was the perfect title to capture what we were trying to say in celebrating Doc's 80th birthday, where, in thinking about revolutionary struggles, of course, there is a lot of difficulty and strife and heartbreak and disappointment and even bloodshed that comes to mind, like like the cost that a revolutionary has to pay. But it was important to remind ourselves that ultimately it is a product of love, like love for your people. And because you love your people, you love all humanity. And this love, this deep rooted love and devotion to human beings, is what makes all of the figures that we look up to, like the boys, King, Baldwin, so beautiful as human beings. And I think that framing was very important. And it was also important that in the celebration, we reached out to not just individuals, but also organizations and institutions of the people to say, join us in celebrating through Doc's 80th birthday, celebrating this beautiful and beloved struggle that is our inheritance, but it's also everybody's inheritance. This is the task that needs to be picked up right now. And I didn't know it before I saw it, but now that I've seen it, it seems absolutely clear to me that the pageant was the best way to capture the beauty together with the revolutionary spirit of the struggle that produced Doc and also produced Free School, where it's like I think it was very Du Boisian in the sense of the souls of black folk, which actually had that quality of the human striving, the quality of the human beings that were produced, the quality of the art and music and so on. And it's very hard for me to pick which were my which were the highlights of Friday. But I think personally it was the young people who were a part of it that was the most moving for me. I mean, I keep thinking about Nafis reciting excerpts from King's Beyond Vietnam speech. And I mean, it's just so moving to see a young person not just read something out of a piece of paper, but actually try and embody Martin Luther King Jr. and what he represented and how he spoke to his people. And then Doc's grandchildren reading from the boys. I mean, really, what it holds up is, like, if you can imagine it, a society where children from a very early age are taught to look up to the boys, to look up to James Baldwin, and not to like sports stars or pop stars or celebrities or artists and so on and so forth. And yeah, I mean, I think Jamil's dancing, I mean, all of it. I think the reason why those performances became more than just performances was also because the people who were involved in it could see and were moved by what they were being called upon to celebrate. And then, like I said, I think we reached out to these institutions, and the response from those institutions were overwhelmingly positive. Mother Bethel AME, Reverend Calvinist, not just coming but singing what, in my experience, was the most beautiful renditions of spirituals that I have heard. And then Steve from Zion Baptist Church, his recitation of Leon Sullivan's speech. I know there were others from the nation on both days, and just the sheer volume of people who showed up in the spirit of wholehearted participation and appreciation and understanding of what we were trying to do. It was not just a sentimental celebration, but it was really to lift up a struggle that needs to be carried forward. That is the task of our times. And I think just as much as for Free School, it was a reminder of what we inherit and what we have to carry forward. I think for a lot of people in the room who probably are closer to this history than I have ever been, I think for them also it was a reawakening or making that history come alive, because I was really moved by something Rhonda said to me at the end of Friday, where she was thinking about Nicole, Doc's daughter, and Catherine Blunt, talking about Doc's mother and the kind of human being she was, the kind of community leader she was. And for Rhonda, it was a reminder of her own grandmother, who, the way she put it was like, because she's my grandmother and I have a personal relationship, you take it for granted. But then you have to remember that there were extraordinary human beings that were produced because of this struggle, because of this social system. I don't know. So all of that was very moving. It almost felt like what we talk about was coming alive in front of our eyes. And so I think Friday particularly was very significant. I think it was a huge accomplishment because it was a new kind of politics, a new way for the message to be sent to the world. And I know I'm going to talk less about the second day, and I can add more remarks later on. But I think the second day was then again to go to the heart of the ideas that the free school has defended for so long. But now we've even moved past the stage of just defending these ideas, where we want to go to the world with these ideas almost on an ideological offensive. And I think the most significant things that stood out to me from the second day was this idea that we are at a stage of world history now where a new kind of peace movement is what will determine the future, and a peace movement not even just at the level of nations and states, but at the level of human beings, getting to know one another. And I really liked what Nandita had said in her presentation in the morning, where she said that the two central pillars of this new type of peace movement has to be the Boysian idea that man must know man, and then the idea that man is divine. That this is what lies at the heart of the struggle that lies in our future. And I also feel like we established why Du Bois is indispensable for the struggle, this new kind of peace movement, but the struggle for peace and democracy excuse me, in general. And all of the ideas, the Boysian ideas that were lifted up, were ways to show that Du Bois gives us the opportunity to, like Doc says, to go to the front lines of the ideological struggle, which is where revolutionaries really belong. And I think this came out through the last roundtable also. We recognize that these ideas actually live among the people and in institutions of the people. I know Jeremiah talked about the United House of Prayer in the last roundtable, and the Nation of Islam was talked about. And just the spirit of the people wanting to hold on to this legacy and wanting a better future for their children, for themselves, and but for all Americans, all humanity, really. I think I can add more later on, but in my opinion, I think I want to end with what I began. Is I think it was a very important celebration. It had to be done. It had to be done in the city of Philadelphia, and I think it was, yeah, I think it was a huge accomplishment.
I'm going to build on Purva because he imagined this intro to be complimentary, even though I was like, oh, Shambardi should go after Purva because I was feeling scared. Because actually, I think assessing the event is as huge of a task as the event itself. And I wanted to build on Purva and say, last Friday and Saturday in celebrating Doc's 80th birthday, from the beginning of the conversations of should we celebrate Doc, yes or no, it was Raju and Nanita who kept emphasizing from India that celebrating Doc would be a world historic matter because you're not just defending the individual, you're defending the ideas.
Okay. That's better.
Let's start from the concrete of your 80th birthday and I think I agree with Purva that I think it was an extremely important event in ways that I did not expect it to be in some ways. And I think what ended up happening was I felt like we were consolidating, almost becoming self-conscious of ourselves again, and consolidating and being explicit about what we're consolidating around when it comes to the revolutionary ideas that Doc both taught us and we as a group have advanced over these past years in a city like Philadelphia, which is an extreme battleground of the revolutionary struggle for a non-white nation. what would that look like? What would the people look like? And what it showed me was that the large takeaway I have is that the Saturday Free School for Philosophy and Black Liberation, and I'd like to hear what you guys also think about this, but I think we reconsolidated ourselves in a way that put us forward, showing the people who came and showing ourselves what a small group of people dedicated to revolutionary ideas, science, and struggle can do. What a small group, not a majority, but a small dedicated group of revolutionaries actually dedicated to knowledge for liberation, what we can achieve. And that we are also a group of multiple civilizations. And I think that was like, because in some ways I kept thinking to myself, in some ways I told Alice this morning, I was like, I'm kind of not even interested in talking about the event because I'm interested in talking about what's next. You know, because I think that shows what we were able to achieve in the event through also defending Doc. And this comes from Raji, where like there's something very important about, in particular, consolidating around a tradition of knowledge for liberation and a tradition of revolutionary struggle coming from a knowledge for liberation, advanced and embodied by someone like Doc for decades. And I think we asserted in both days, in different ways, we asserted that the ideological struggle that Doc defended with his life and sacrifice and commitment against the white left, against academic elites, against Afrocentrists, against the ruling class, and all of essentially the lapdogs of the ruling class, that the ideological struggle, this ideological struggle, is the revolutionary struggle for freedom. And I felt like the event was actually an announcement of that, a proclamation of that. Like, you may think, for example, people may think in free school every Saturday, we just like to sit in a church and just talk and talk and talk, and then we enjoy it. No, like let us reintroduce ourselves that the ideological struggle is the revolutionary struggle, and we'll show it to you in two different ways, Friday, Saturday, together. And I think we also asserted that this ideological struggle that we have advanced through consistent work, not just Doc's life, but us consistently in the almost 15 years of Free School's life, that this is the ideological struggle that will be taken up by the young people of all kinds of civilizations in this country and around the world. And it will be taken up in the name of Black liberation and the knowledge for freedom. I think day two, I kind of want to build on Purba and talk about Saturday in particular, because I think Saturday was really that day where we were asserting the ideas for freedom, that the ideas are the things that will change the course of history if the people make it part of their organic material and political life. I think just like Purba was saying, I also was very struck by that first roundtable, intercivilizational unity, and our discussion of the world stage of human history. You know, the stage of history, the stage of human consciousness we're at. I think we were able to assert that this is a civilizational struggle for colored modernity, for a modern stage of humanity that is not white and is also free from the products of white supremacy, imperialism, neocolonialism, racism, transactional human relationships, consumerism, war. And then we connected it. We asserted that as part of this world civilizational struggle for colored modernity, in America, us being Americans, America is a dramatic or extreme battleground for this civilizational struggle. Hence the role of the Black liberation struggle and why we see ourselves as a side of free school for Black liberation. We talked about humanity who is dark, who is majority dark, is embarking on achieving their voice for the first time in world history. I get this a lot from Nanit and Raju. And that's why we in the Free School also see ourselves as a continuing of an unfulfilled anti-colonial struggle of the world, Black freedom movement, the Russian Revolution, the World Peace Council, the great rise, crystallization of the people's movements of the 20th century. We see ourselves as talking about the 21st century revolutionary struggle now. And that's how we're synthesizing these movements and bodies of knowledge that comes from darker humanity of the 20th century, conscious of itself for the first time. And then And I just wanted to raise that I think the second day, what we did in a strong way was we asserted once again that you have to take the history of human consciousness seriously. Mm-hmm. We see ourselves as part of a long and blossoming history of consciousness. That this is the role, the revolutionary role of knowledge, of truth, in a time when man must know man in order to create a new world. And I took this from what Serafina's presentation on the Du Bois panel. Serafina said, she phrased it as, to make men, we must have ideas. Hence, why Du Bois? Because Du Bois is, in a lot of ways, that advanced, to this day, prophet of knowledge for truth, knowledge for liberation, science, why knowledge and truth and science is so imperative for the revolutionary fulfillment of humanity, which we still, like, that's why we also take Du Bois serious, not just because we're dogmatic about, like, we liked him, we decided he's cool, we're taking, no, this is us explaining why Du Bois, why consciousness. Okay, and then lastly, what I took away from Saturday was, I'm returning to the same point of, we always come back to asserting why the Black struggle, why the Black freedom struggle, back to the anti-slavery struggle, like Henry Winston said, the anti-slavery struggle to the anti-imperialist struggle today. Mm-hmm. That this struggle is not only our struggle as American revolutionaries, but it is a world historic struggle of revolutionary consequences. It has political and civilizational consequences for the world. And that was the value of having Rajendra to speak from India about how the Black freedom struggle is one of the many outstanding revolutionary traditions of darker humanity achieving one singular colored modernity. A world that is not white, a world that does not need whiteness, a world that has defeated white supremacy. And I took this from, I think, Nandita. She said, and I think we established this, that Black people are the people in this country who forged, maybe around the world, who were the first to forge a civilizational identity that is explicitly anti-white supremacy. Like, and that's a very deep conclusion. Yes, okay, I think that's it. And then, okay, and now I'll return to kind of what I took away from day one, but I think it's the whole event, is coming back to this question of, I think this is the way we're always politically and scientifically assessing our events, is we're always asking, what is the capacity of the people? And what is the capacity of the people? How are people responding to us saying that the ideological struggle is the revolutionary struggle? Mm-hmm. I think I was really, because this is the stuff you cannot predict. I think I was extremely moved by one, first of all, Doc, not just because you're a charismatic guy, you're funny, but Doc as an embodiment of a certain tradition and ideas still resonate with the Black community. He still resonates with Philadelphia. And to me, what I took away is that the people of Philadelphia, especially Black folk, still have the capacity to change this city. And they still remember and want to return to a disciplined struggle of resistance. There's still a capacity to resist white supremacy. And that's what I took away from many people coming to celebrate Doc's birthday and staying for the event. It also, I think, proves that a city like Philadelphia is special, because even compared to every city that we call a Black city, Chicago, St. Louis, Philadelphia, I mean, New York is a whole different thing. But Black cities they at this time have a battleground for, are we going to be a Black city that takes into account the Black worker and the struggles of Black workers throughout history to make these cities what they are, to make the economy what it is, to make society what it is, to have advanced society democratically in these cities? Or are these cities going to just abandon and just oust Black folk? And this is what Jeremiah was saying on the last roundtable of Saturday, which is, it was so sad. It's sad when you have children in high school saying, I want to leave Philadelphia, when your parents and grandparents are the people who made this city. And it's sad that so many Black people have been gentrified out. And the question is, basically, to me, it showed that, no, we still got this. We still got this. And in a city like Philadelphia, the Black community is still a force that has to be contended with if you want to make any move or decision in the city. It doesn't matter what kind of mayor you are, first of all. You still to this day cannot do what you want with Philly unless you are actually contending with and talking to and taking into account the defining force of the city, the Black community. I also asked the question, do the people remember our revolutionary struggles, the revolutionary figures and the movements themselves? Because people like Muhammad Ali, Martin Luther King Jr., Leon Sullivan, they're not just names, like the way we do the point of kind of talking about them and seeing how people respond to them is the question of, do you still remember our freedom fighters and what they stood for and what they fought for? And I actually think that the answer is yes. I think like this is something Michelle and I talk a lot about. Even though if people responded to the music, this anti-war, pro-people music, people remember it with remember with a lot of passion.
Yes.
They haven't abandoned it.
Yes.
And that also says something about the capacity of the people. Also, what Kerber was bringing up, that through the event, we were able to begin what I call a reconstitution, a holding on of the institutions of freedom. Zion Baptist Church, Mother Bethel AME, the Nation of Islam, many brothers of the Nation of Islam came to the event. I think there is an emerging reconstitution of these institutions around a central revolutionary struggle against this state that puts more money into war than children. And I think that was very positive. So besides just individual attendees, that was a positive sign. Lastly, I talked to a lot of you about this, but I'll say it for the live stream, which is, to me, the pageant was also an experiment of, do the youth and children, does Du Bois, does King, do these ideas, revolutionary ideas, still speak to the children? Because I mean, the question we have is basically like, maybe children and youth don't dig Du Bois, they don't dig King, like they're just part of the past. And we may like Du Bois and King, but I mean, it's an actually open question. I'm not going to be dogmatic or patronize people over like, I don't know what kids are thinking. Like, I don't know. And to me, it was the beginning of an experiment we had of does Du Bois still speak to youth and children? And I think the way you heard Naima, Doc's granddaughter, read Black Reconstruction. First of all, Black Reconstruction is no joke. It's extremely hard to just read in front of your eyes. And it's very hard to understand. And in order to act or recite something, you need to understand the power of the words, its meaning. And I was so impressed. It said something to me that Naima, especially when she reached certain parts and knew her favorites, she started smiling. Because you knew that she liked it. Yeah. She read that one line where she was like, what they feared more was not a bad Negro government, but a good Negro government. You could tell she was feeling that. She was feeling that shit. And same with Nafis, where like Megna was saying, she was like, Nafis, this young acting student at Temple, he loves theater. And the reason why he loves theater is because it's ideological for him. He loves what theater says about human beings, that spirit. And I mean, I got a lot of, even the structure of the pageant I got from him, because he had sent me a long time ago, this concept of the poor man's theater, where you don't need costumes. You don't need a set, you don't need costumes to embody the spirit of theater. And I really took from that. And Megna said the thing that struck her about Nafis when he was reading Kings Beyond Vietnam was that he embodied the essence of King's work. And it felt like you weren't even listening to King anymore. You were listening to a young man giving a speech about today. About tomorrow, when he said tomorrow is today. And even the line where Nafis read, where he was like, if we don't do something now, future generations of clergy, they won't be standing up against Vietnam. They'll be standing up against Guatemala, against Africa, about the ongoing, this is a deeper societal issue. And you felt like Nafis was talking about now. You felt like when he was talking about Vietnam, he was talking about Gaza. You felt like he was talking about the condition of his own city. And it was just really beautiful. And it told me that King and Du Bois still speak to the youth and children. And these ideas still speak to the youth and children. Last thing, just overall, I just want to repeat it, which is, I think what it showed me was that free school is right, which is knowledge is very important. Then there's a need for knowledge, not just the past, but knowledge for today. That and to make that we have and that we must make it politically materially rooted in the people. And I kind of felt like that was kind of one of my goals for the pageant, to show the Black social system and the forces that, like, let's not just remember when we had good music, remember when we had good jobs. No. Yes, okay, we remember, but why? Where did it come from? It didn't fall from the sky. It came from an ongoing struggle of ordinary men and women against the brutal forces of white supremacy to fight to make jobs, to make the jobs good, to make this. It came from a people's struggle, a unity of the people through ideas for democracy against war. And that to show that there is such thing as a Black social system, a civilization with forces coming from a people struggle from the South all the way to the North that allowed genius to spring up, that allowed a doc to arrive. And I just wanted to end by saying that I left this conference feeling confident as I've never felt before. I felt extremely confident. That's why I started. I felt so confident in us that this is what a small group dedicated and disciplined to ideas, revolutionary ideas for freedom, this is what we can do. And now I kind of understand why Doc is always bringing up like the Chinese Revolution. He's like, it was only 12 people at first in Shanghai. And you're showing that what it starts with is a group of people, no matter how small, dedicated to ideas for peace and dedicated to the people. I wanted to return to the last thing I would say was return to this thing that, because I was reading the collected writings that we were able to put together, which was honestly a huge amount of work, by the way, to be able to collect those writings and put it together like this. And that is such an achievement. But I was reading the Henry Winston speech, the speech that Doc gave on Henry Winston at a Henry Winston conference in, I think, 2023, right? And I mean, also, it's also a testimony to just how much work we in Free School do, to be honest. Like the events, just the amount of events we put on for like years. And not even talking about the reading groups, but Doc has this thing where he said, men must be ideologically remade. That's really nice. And that Henry Winston, when understanding a cadre, a dedicated group of people for change, believed that it's study and action, both together. And I think that's us. I think what this past event showed me was we got it. We got this. We got this. And just like all revolutions, we had to ask as American revolutionary the question of what to study and to act for what and for who, the specificity of the American situation. And I think in our event, we talked about that we are revolutionaries on the world stage of time and geography, but that we also that we're so right in saying the specificity of the American situation is that the struggle for Black liberation is in fact the struggle for people's democracy in this country. For the emancipation of labor and man, you must want to emancipate the darker worker, the Black worker in this country. Look at their struggle. And I wanted to repeat something Doc has said, which is, I finally understand what Doc means when he says, free school is the wheel within a wheel. That we are a small, mighty group with a major force because of our dedication to ideas. We're a major force, even the way we're able to bring together these different institutions, individuals in these institutions, to revive and remember certain revolutionary traditions and bring people together. We have a major impact in the city and across the country because of our dedication to an ideological struggle for emancipation. Right. And I think I just feel extremely confident about the work we're doing and that we're going to be doing, even with the sociological study of we are embarking on what Winston called that study and practice, creation of new knowledge and action through that new knowledge that allows us to not only assess this crisis that is only deepening before our eyes, and I think we'll talk about later, but also to envision the future, the positive. That we already know where the positive comes from. We know what imaginary comes from. It comes from the Black proletarian imaginary. It comes from this wealth and music and spirit and striving. We see it all the time when we go to like the Black Gods churches, the Nation of Islam, the United Health for all people. When you listen to Duke Ellington or Charles Mingus, or this is what free school is all about. And I finally also know, I think this is the part, the qualitative character of free school that's really hard to describe to people in general unless you're part of us, which is, I finally understand what we mean when we say the Afro-Asiatic reconstitution, which is that we are in the process of remaking man himself, remaking him to be so incompatible with white supremacy, to make man humanly impossible to be compatible with white supremacy. And I think we in free school are an experiment of that. In our own individual lives, when you talk to us or have lunch with us or have dinner with us or come to us to see plays or go to churches, or the jokes we have, the things we find funny, the things we find beautiful. We are a living experiment of that Afro-Asiatic reconstitution of America and the world. And it's extremely hard to describe that over live stream unless you dig it, unless you come and roll with us. And I really liked what Nandita said when she said what that makes us do is it makes us not only inheritors of multiple civilizations, but it makes us an inheritor of world civilization. It makes, that's Robeson, right? It makes you someone like Paul Robeson, and it makes you love China or India or the world's peoples and their struggles as much as you love your own people. And yeah, I think that was my takeaway from my reflection from the event.
Well, I was initially thinking of, sort of trying to go over all that we achieved. But I think, given what, you guys were saying before, it makes me also think that, okay, I'll start by saying that I think after, all free school events, we sort of try to, like what Emily was also saying, to assess the event. I think we come to the conclusion that each event really advances not just the free school, but it advances the political struggle in this time. And I think with this event, I think some of my reflections, and I think pretty much everybody has also been saying this over the last maybe a month, that I think to examine the ideological history of your life means that we are actually studying a very specific history, which has been kept from us, which has been kept from the world's people. And I think this, studying this history is, it's kept from us for a reason. And I think the lessons that we uncover also says something about our future, says something about what possibilities do we have. And I think it's for all of us, it's a very existential question about what kind of lives are we to lead, and what future do we see for ourselves. Only when we see that for ourselves can we talk about this future concretely for the people of America and the world. And I just wanted to go back to say that I think this event has been it's been very emotional, because to study this history it's also because it's, on the one hand, it's our personal relationship to you, but then this history has really, this history has also been able to change us fundamentally, change individuals in free school fundamentally. And I think the the biggest achievement that I thought from the event. I was very proud of the event, because I think really this was, first of all, I think one of the most highly attended events that we have seen in recent times in free school. And I think it says something about what Emily was saying, the consciousness of a city like Philadelphia. And it says something about the role that I mean, I don't want to sound cheesy, but the role that you have played in the city, and I mean it specifically because I think not everybody who is going to be a part, like, what we're looking at now is really a new stage of consciousness of the American people, where, everything is up for grab. There is no, we say this all the time, there is no, the center doesn't hold. There are no assumptions that cannot be questioned. Everything is in question. And at a time like this, for people who attended the event, it was not so much about how it's not so much about how much they engage on the ideological front line, but it really, I think it showed me also something about, we say this all the time about, like genius and beauty being buried in the people, but it takes something to recognize that. And I think, people who attended the event, their responses, the way they really responded to, all the performances, and um, to the, like, to, I mean, I'll talk about the things that stood out the most to me immediately, like in the Mother Bethel, the pastor singing spiritual, singing, we're climbing Jacob's ladder, and all these people's response to the entirety of Friday. It showed something about, yeah, it showed something really beautiful about the quality of people who come together to celebrate, to celebrate a man who has defended black folk, and also highlights the possibility. We are trying to do it. We are trying to say that this is a history to be defended, not just not just to pay like homage to the past, but really to pick up this struggle. That's why we're calling it our struggle. And I think this is what, not only I think this is not just the American people, but also the world's people who need to see this as our struggle. And yeah, and I wanted to, like, some of the things that were really deep, I think, from Friday was also, yeah, this also, I think Purba or Emily mentioned about, like, Nicole and Catherine talking about your mother, because I think on the one hand, yes, it is it's a personal story that they were sharing, but it also made me appreciate that sometimes we come to this place where, okay, this is an exception, this is an exceptional human being, and but I think it showed something about, yeah, what it means to be like a mother to a community. And the kind of a world consciousness that was coming out from what Catherine and Nicole were saying, that she really saw herself, and she really gave something to, not just to you, but to everyone who came in touch with her. And I think all of this shows, it was very moving, because it shows that this is not just an accident of history, but this is rooted in history, and this is in which means that this is also our possibilities today, to see ourselves, to know each other, to for man to know man. Um, and yeah, I think, like, some of the things I wanted to say was also some that Purba and Emily mentioned, but I think I think going, like, looking at the 2 days together, it made me also think about the quality of free school events. And I think, yeah, like, us being able to reach organizations of the people, like the churches, like, like young people like Nafis, and it it says something about what, like, yeah, what is at stake, and the, like, really what these ideas mean today, because these institutions are not, they're not like just rock and structured institutions. These institutions have had a history in the city, and I think free schools, being able to reach them and them being able to see free school, says something about what is possible today. And I wanted to come to the Saturday event, because the Saturday part of the day, because I think some of the biggest highlights was, that I think set the tone for the day, was really the first, the round table with Rajanandita, where, like, we were talking about yeah, what does it, what does it mean to talk about intercivilizational unity and a new peace movement? And I think, it was Nandita who was saying that the, of course, yes, the call for today is for, for humanity to reveal, to reveal itself to itself. The people also need to know who the people are. And I think what Nandita said was, about how, how we know a civilization is to know them through their freedom struggles. And this has been the, this is what we do in free school. We study and we celebrate, historic achievements of really the world, the freedom struggles of the world, the anti-colonial movements, especially, and of course the Black freedom struggle. And I think, looking back on Saturday, I think to be able to see, it was a, I think it was a moment of renewal for me also, because to see that, all of us do inherit multiple, civilizations. We are all trying to really see ourselves as a part of. We're not just trying to, study this history for the sake of it, but we're trying to recreate ourselves in, in we're trying to recreate ourselves in the, to see the possibilities that really come from the freedom struggles of, world civilizations, from India, from China, from Africa, and, from the Black freedom struggle. And I think to look at, I think to see that this is the history that we inherit also allows us to say that this is, when we do politics, we are not just trying to, we're not trying to just, list the demands of the state, but we're actually trying to demand something of the people. We're trying to demand something of ourselves. And this is what Nandita and, I think others also said throughout on Saturday, that we really, trying to demand something, of all of us, of the people, to see ourselves in this history, which has been kept from us. And by looking at, through the celebration and through really looking at what we can take forward, we are actually trying to know ourselves, trying to recreate ourselves. And I just wanted to end by, like, a couple of things that I wanted to highlight, and maybe we can talk about this later. I thought some new ground was broken. I think one of the things was that really stood out to me was, Serafina talking about, really to talk about sociology, but to bring in the question of what does it mean to have a state without bureaucracy. And I think the question that really, that you were bringing out was, when we do sociology, when we are trying to, really do sociology with our, studies, and what we try to do with the event, it's also a way of really taking on the question of a new vision. We're not just talking about a crisis. So how do we understand the crisis today? But what is our vision? What is the state going to look like? What are human possibilities going to look like under a new kind of a state? And we deal with this question all the time with, like, looking at what Jeremiah and Emily were talking about some few weeks back, the lessons from the Russian Revolution, but the Indian freedom struggle, a new kind of state that's possible. All of these are our inheritances, and we're trying to. Yeah, I think that was really deep. And the other thing was also something that Purva brought out, in, talking about all humanity struggle, which is something I hadn't thought about before in these terms. That when we say all humanity struggle, it's, on the one hand, it's about the world's people coming together and knowing each other to build a world beyond the color line. But at the same time, it's also a call to what does a revolutionary look like, and who can play a part in the struggle. And really, at a time like this, and I think this has also been true in the Black freedom struggle and in the Indian freedom struggle, that revolutionaries were not a class apart, that, everyone of a society saw themselves as revolutionaries. And, like, what it means is really that how you lead your life, what you see your life as, what are you trying to fight? Are you trying to fight the state, or are you trying to fight a way of life? Are you trying to create a new way of life? I think this is something that's very important for today um, because this is the contention that we have been like really trying to make for a while about where the left is at and where we are trying to break new ground, because I think the left does see revolutionaries as, I mean, this is maybe something that you would get to later, but the left does see revolutionaries as something almost outside of the people, that you have to have professional revolutionaries. And maybe there was a time that this is the way the movement had. I mean, of course, this was maybe partly the case in the Russian Revolution, and maybe even in the in the 50s and so on. It was part of how people were trying to figure out where revolutionary activity lay. But I think today it is undeniable that we are all trying to recreate a new kind of human being, a new kind of civilization, which means that whatever we do, I mean, none of us in free school, we aren't like somebody was saying, I think that, oh, is it a voluntary organization or such? And the thing is, yeah, none of us are, professional revolutionaries, but we're trying to, and we all have, regular jobs doing regular things. But this is something that we are trying to really reconfigure and realign our lives to. And yeah, I wanted to say this because I think this really opens up possibilities for everybody. That this, you you don't it's like you don't uproot your life. You do uproot your life from the kind of life that you always thought, or what the white world circumscribed your life to. You do uproot that in some ways, but you cannot uproot your life from the people and the kind of life that you want to lead, what your work means. And yeah, I just wanted to say that because I think it really clarifies something about who can be a revolutionary. And I think this event, the quality of people who were like part of the celebration and who attended, I think it showed something about what's possible today. Yeah, maybe I'll just end.
Yeah. Well, okay. I hope people don't mind if I talk just to add on to what they're saying. But yeah, well, first I want to say that after this event, a few of us got sick, and some of us maybe a majority of us got sicker than we've been in a long time. And yeah, a few of us didn't. But I just bring it up to say that, in the midst of all that, like, I'm here in free school like right now because I want to be here. And because, and like, where else would I be? Especially on a Saturday. And yeah, actually, interestingly, to prepare for free school today in our assessment, I was reading something made me want to read Emil Carpedral, and he has this really nice speech or a lecture that he gave at Lincoln University in 1972 when he received his honorary doctorate.
I think it was 73.
And partially it's, Tony is so I guess you're both alumni of Lincoln.
No, he's not.
He didn't go there, but you're both connected by Lincoln.
Yeah.
Were you there when he came to campus?
One of the great mistakes I ever made. I went to a local party meeting, and I missed his.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, yeah, well,
Yeah.
but the reason why I was drawn to reading Emil Carpedral was because he has this notion called returning to the source, which is the title of a collection of his speeches and essays. And for some reason, that was like partially how I've been trying to make sense of the celebration of Doc's birthday. And when Cabral talks about returning to the source, he doesn't mean returning to some dead past. He means return to the source of history, the people. He's saying return to the people who make history. And actually, he talks about how in Africa, he's like, actually, when people talk about a renaissance, a lot of times it's usually limited to a small section of the kind of colonial bourgeoisie or the petty bourgeoisie in Africa, because he's like, for the vast majority of the masses of people, like actually, even in spite of colonialism, they've maintained their culture, their traditions, and in the face of also the onslaught of colonialism and all that. And I think it is interesting to consider if the American people are in a similar or also different position today from what Cabral was describing. But I wanted to bring that up because that's part of how I make sense of just, yeah, adding on to what others were saying, like even how we understand our role in free school. And I agree with Emily of the concept of like free school being a wheel within a wheel. The other way that I've been thinking about it the past couple of days is free school as a witness. And we act as a kind of witness to the people and what they're capable of. And I think that's something that we should never underestimate. Yeah, it's kind of funny because I feel like, yeah, this was probably one of the most highly attended events that we've had in a while. And I kind of forgotten what that felt like because I think sometimes we do events and they're pretty limited, which is also not a bad thing. But I think it is, yeah, it's a testament to what others have said, which is Doc in particular, and what you mean, not just to like other activists, but to like ordinary people, like ordinary Black people. And I think that was, I don't know, that was something I really appreciated with just like the occasion of the event itself. But I guess going back to like the return to the source thing, part of the other reason why I was thinking about it was because yeah, we had part of the preparation, we had done that collection of Doc's writings and speeches from over the years. And like, I tried to say it in the introduction that I wrote for the collection. No. I'm just saying that like I really mean it where, you know, doing that research, reading like, it's not just moments in time, but like it felt like that we were like being able to witness like these ideas moving through history and captured in the life of a person, you know? And I really do mean it when I was like basically trying to say that it felt like I was discovering a part of my own history that has helped make me who I am today. And part of that is like your role, like your mentorship, your friendship, your comradeship, but it's also like, I think this is something actually that Mary helped me to understand better from the interviews that you have been doing, which is that, because you guys have kind of asked Doc, like, how is it that you were able to not retreat, but stay on the front lines of the ideological struggle, but also to like continue searching for the new and to not stay frozen or stuck or to not be dogmatic, but to keep searching, like keep pushing, like essentially this whole thing of like renewal, almost like ideological renewal. And the way that Neri had explained it to me is that like, one, that you had made this commitment like from very early on in your life to struggle and to ideas, and that also to the extent that you've been able to kind of keep moving and not be frozen in time like many other people have been, is because you've always been connected to what Cabral says is the source, which is the people. And it's like to the extent that the people themselves are also changing, the ideas also have to evolve, have to change, have to better grapple onto the reality of the people and how they're changing, but especially Black people, but also the world. And yeah, that was something I really appreciated actually about the event, which was really bringing to the forefront like something that you embody and have been committed to, but which we all are striving towards, which is yes, we're struggling to find a revolutionary path for the American people, but we're also struggling to be part of a world process, a world that's in motion, and a world that is changing. And I guess I wanted to bring up a few more things, which are, yeah, like it's almost, especially with the Friday program, I think part of what was so exciting about it was that sometimes it feels like free school is like a river or something, and we have like very like very kind of usual paths that we go through. And then like part of it is like literally like every day Saturday meeting in free school, doing this thing that we do every. But then part of what was really exciting was like almost like in part because of Emily and the work that you did and the kind of leaps that you took, the creative and imaginative leaps that you took. It was like these new pathways opened up, or to me, it felt like these new pathways opened up, and it's like, oh wow, like there's so much more we can do, and it became so much. It felt like yeah, like this river became so much broader or deeper, and that was very exciting to me, and and I really appreciated that, and I think other things that stood out, I guess, were I guess yeah, bringing it back to like the Cabral thing, but Cabral makes this point that the struggle for culture only means anything if it's completely integrated with the struggle to emancipate the people. And I think that was what that is our contribution, which is to be like, let's imagine what art, culture, dance, music can look like when it's completely integrated with this narrative of the people struggling to be free throughout time. And in that sense, it's like it wasn't just the performances, but also Emily's narrative to bring it together, which was very important. To be like, okay, what does all of this mean? What is it for? And I think people took that up very, very readily, which was very encouraging for me. And I think the other concepts that really stood out to me were, the idea of civilization. And I think this was a kind of theme throughout, especially Saturday, but also Friday. And something that I think in hindsight, I kind of wish that like I had been able to articulate better in like the roundtable, for example, was what is it that makes civilization a revolutionary concept or a concept that has a revolutionary pull for even for the American people in this time. And I guess the way that I have been thinking about it is like kind of like almost like 2 or 3 ways. One of which is that when we talk about civilization, it refers to or it invokes like the continuity of time and of history, which constitutes a people. And that part of the challenge that we're confronted with today is that we live in a society whose elite are determined to stop that flow of time and of continuity of like the world civilizations. And this is part of what was established with the first roundtable of it's America's war against world civilization.
Yeah.
You know, and that is a revolutionary call to save world civilization, which requires you to go against Western civilization and white civilization. And I guess the other way of thinking about it, at least for me, is like civilization refers to like the mode of human existence almost. Like, and this is something that I feel like you can, I guess, talk about in different ways, but it's like we are looking for like a new ways of human beings living together, and new social relationships and new social organization among the people. But I think actually, to me, the strongest reason why civilization is a revolutionary concept and a concept for this time is because it's like if civilization is for something, it is almost like to civilization creates like the prototype for for the kind of human being that society that a people aspire towards. And in that sense, like when we've talked about people like Coretta Scott King as a representative of civilization, like it's like we're trying to show the people like this new archetype, this new prototype of what human beings can be, and that this is the calling of the people of this country to aspire towards that new prototype of human being, and that in doing so, we will create the foundations of a new civilization. But that this is what essentially calls people to struggle and to be part of the struggle. And and yeah, so I guess just to end, I think I agree with what Shimbarku had said, which is that we are essentially calling for the people to come back to themselves, um, and to come back to everything that they're capable of. And this is also why I think this event in particular was such like an explosion of not just the ideological, like the kind of direct ideological stuff, but like the cultural stuff, like the poetry, the music. And like even for myself personally, I was like, yeah, I felt very like especially after Friday, I was like, yeah, okay, well, why shouldn't I try to read poetry, even if it's bad? Like, why shouldn't I try? You know, like why not try? And I think it's because yeah, so many of us like I think interest, even though you know we put ourselves out there, I think there's actually like a lot of ways that I think we can be pretty shy or pretty reserved and afraid to actually show, but like afraid to actually try to like be fully who you are and who you're trying to be around other people who might judge you or who might turn away or who might point fingers at whatever. And I was like, yeah, like why not try? And and I think that in doing so, hopefully, we, like I said, we act as a witness to more people. And we act as a witness to try to be like, yeah, like all of us, like we're all capable of so much more, and let's come back to ourselves. So, yeah, that's what
Well, I think for what the collection was for Jeremiah, I think the interview was that for me because I feel that I've like tried to understand your life before, but you're a little bit secretive or like not like
Secretive.
Oh, I'm secretive?
well, really, I just wanted to emphasize that I think the way that your like revolutionary history was revealed to us, revealed a part of us back to ourselves. And for me, it was the interview that did that, even though I wasn't part of conducting the interview. The second interview in particular, it almost felt like a turning point in my life to hear you talk, especially about those Lincoln years and the years preceding the Lincoln years and the years.
What years?
Sorry.
The Lincoln years, okay.
The Lincoln years and the years preceding the Lincoln years and the years succeeding them. And I think more concretely than ever, it gave me that feeling of, I mean, this is my heritage. And these are the people that paid my dues for me. And it's on their sacrifice and staying on which I stand. Yeah, and I will like sometimes ask myself, oh, am I jealous that I didn't grow up with what you grew up where, you know, my family here is so small. My parents had no articulation for this being like a white supremacist society and whether or not they were prepared me for it. But then like hearing Jeremiah talk, I thought about King's speech when he says, um, sometimes you can only see the stars and it's yeah. And he's saying that, you know, I think it might seem strange that we live in a time of such deep injustice and a time of such war across the world. And yet I would still choose to live in this moment today. And even as somebody that grew up the way I did, um, feeling separated from history for most of my life, I don't think I would have it any other way. And for some reason, it's knowing your life that made me know that again. And I don't even know how to totally explain it yet. But it gave me something. And I wanted to start with the interview because I felt like the way that Emily you architected the first day captured that essence in the way it had made me feel perfectly. And the thing that affected me a lot about the first day was the moment that you began your narrative. And I immediately knew what you were doing, which is that, like Du Bois in the Souls of Black Folk, you're saying, come beneath the veil, or come beyond the veil. Let me show you what lives on the other side of the veil, where you can see the souls and the stragglers of Black folk. Um, and I thought that was an immense contribution. Um, but the other thing I was thinking about is how for the last few years, I feel that people in Philadelphia, and especially Black folk, have really raised the way that people in the city cherish music. And I think they have a great ear for great music. And going to institutions where you would listen to jazz, I mean, it has to be of a certain caliber for it to resonate among people. And this isn't true of other American cities. Like I've seen that level of consciousness musically reflected in the city in a unique way. And I was thinking about how your life, Tony, is like a song for the people. And what we saw was a very conscious audience that cherished that and that loved that and lifted it up. And I just wanted to emphasize that because I think Emily you had brought that up. Is that it does say something about the consciousness of the people in the city, that they love your life in this way and see themselves so much reflected in it because, I mean, the same wouldn't be true in Los Angeles, you know, but they love that revolutionary thing. And I think it's the way that we've been able to open up more and more dimensions and paths for people to become a part of a democratic struggle or to become wedded and married to history again. That is really powerful. Like, whether it's, you know, this is where I feel very influenced by seeing the Lucian Blackwell reading group, where even men and women who are retired have a way to make sense of their lives as, for example, public servants again. And to have, I mean, to create new knowledge from it, effectively, that can be used by the younger generation. Or same with the sociology study, where if an intention is to understand the problem of prisons and the incarceration of so many young Black men, I mean, everybody in the community has something to contribute to solving that problem. And then, so I think I'm trying to say that I think the way that event was designed is very masterful. And what it also shows is that I think the imaginary is going to continue to be very important to the way that the American people effectively find themselves again. Because what is pure, what is musical, has a way of cutting through any distortion and any manipulation of thought such that, like, you know, a person can reach a certain consciousness again. And I think, again, I'm saying that because I saw a lot of this quality embodied in the first day that I want to hold on to and I want to not let go of. And I also felt that the first day was it was like a call for each person to become a maker of civilization, or that increasingly preschool is involved in the work of inviting everybody to become a maker of a society, a maker of a new civilization again. And it's like each person comes with a brick, or comes with a stone, or comes with a stick. But everybody has something to give to this project.
Yeah.
And I don't think I have a language for it yet, but preschool is reaching a new quality where it's a life world, but it's also more. I think you said real and real, real within a real. I think that captures it too. And people and institutions become something different and new when they pass through the door of preschool. And you know, I had heard spirituals that Mother Buffalo before, but they sound different when they're with us, and they sound new. Um, so, I also, I was inspired by the way Jeremiah spoke, so I kind of just want to say what else I was thinking. But one of the other things is in your essay, the bourgeois creation of the Negro intellectual.
Oh, yes.
You talked about how Du Bois is exceptional because he was more revolutionary later in his life. But usually what happens is that revolutionaries diminish in their commitment over time. And you said it's a central sociological question, how to make that Du Boisian exception the rule. And I think preschool is discovering that because I mean, we saw that on the first day. We saw it, you know. People can give something again, and they give you a mood. And and then I was also just thinking of Arthur Hall and the village of arts and humanities because he self-described their work doing dance in North Philadelphia as revolutionary. But he said that it was a quiet revolution, like a cultural revolution. And I know new human beings were made at that time. And then the last thing I wanted to say is like to what the last thing that Jeremiah was saying, but also I think the work of the first day in particular, it reminded me of that Baldwin line when he said the work of the artist and the work of I think the revolutionary is one in America, and it's to reveal the beloved to himself, and with that revelation to make it real. And I think that the people who attended on Friday were freed in a way, and I think they knew that. You know?
Can I just say something on this point? You know, well, I want to thank all of you all for putting it together in a dignified way, because events like this could descend into cheap praise and celebration of an individual, and I am so happy that wasn't the case. One of the reasons I didn't want to celebrate my 80th birthday, one, I'm trying to get my head around this. What does it mean? I could tell you more about that. What does it mean to be 80 and feel like you're 45? You know? I mean, for real, for real. But and then I'm vain to a certain extent. I don't want to reveal my life and how old I am. But it was done, I thought, with great dignity, and it was a celebration of more than me, which made it very comfortable for me, and I think for everybody there, that it wasn't just trying to put one person on a pedestal. I really appreciated that, and I appreciated, as Purba said, all of the work of the planning, of the interviewing, of the gathering of essays. And this has been one of Michelle's projects or desires for some time, to get some of these writings together. I really appreciate it. And as I look at the collection, it is very meaningful, um, very meaningful and helpful. But maybe you all have never seen it, but I've seen it before. This was a gathering of radicals and revolutionaries, of people who fight for democracy and for peace and against white supremacy. It was a gathering of what a revolutionary event looks like. Those who consciously boycotted it, and there are many in this city, young and old, but those who consciously avoided it, boycotted it, encouraged others to boycott it, proved that they're on the wrong side of history. And I don't think we need be shy about saying it. You can oppose an organization like the Free School for many reasons: ideological, political, personality-wise. You don't like the people in it, or maybe you don't like me. But you have to ask, when a gathering like this takes place and you don't come, what does that say about you? But it also proved that free school can fly. And if free school can fly, so can the people. And it's so encouraging to see children perform at the high ideological levels that they did, albeit my grandchildren, but they were children, and it was not like their parents or their mothers really forced them to. They wanted to. And for 12 and 10 and 14-year-olds to take on the very complicated writing of Du Bois and read it publicly with the awareness that they brought to it is a testament to the potentiality of children, and maybe a greater potentiality than among a large part of the youth who have not yet, I'm talking about the children who have not experienced at the level of youth cognitive and moral and cultural manipulation. Children are more untouched by all of this that affects youth. I felt that free school showed that it could fly. It demonstrated to people who were always asking, well, what is Tony doing now? Or why does Tony hang out with so many Asians? This is a question that people ask. Has he abandoned the Black struggle? And I think for those who had those questions, and I knew so many people that came that you all don't necessarily know, and I know how they think because some of them we've been together for so long, that they want to know, what is Tony doing? And I think they saw what Tony is doing. And they saw that Tony is involved with a group of people who have wings and are seeking to learn to fly. And they saw something I don't think that many of them had seen in a long time, if ever, a people who came together based upon principled unity, who believe in the people and believe in Black folk, who have decided that the path of whiteness and making oneself comfortable in this framework of whiteness, or just being totally out of it and confused, that there are young people who are revolutionaries and not ashamed of it. And I guess just the last thing I would say is I I felt, and I've said this to Purba when we talk, that I felt it was my destiny to stay on post. And without me fully understanding it, somehow I knew I was waiting for y'all. I don't know if you can understand that. And our destinies met. There's no way in the world you all could have anticipated everything that your lives have become, and there's no way I could have anticipated this. Free school is now going on 14 years old, going into our 15th year, and from modern.
Time for 15th year
Yeah,
celebration.
right. I was thinking about that, but very modest beginnings within a university, which in the end proved to be hostile to the people and hostile to ideas. If you want to make sense of my firing, and it was that, I don't care how they did it, it was a hostility to revolutionary ideas, and we should never get it confused. And people who still want to defend Dr. Asante had a right to do what he did. Yeah, okay. If you want to defend that position, you expose more about yourself. I think, there's so much, and I'll talk about it a little bit, but I think where we are today, and Emily, the way you did that narrative was so beautiful. I have to look at it again. I haven't, but again, I want to say any other way would have made me deeply uncomfortable. And I felt very in fact, I learned from it. Yeah. And I like the fact that you referred to me as our native son.
That was doing it.
Jeremiah, I like that very much, rather than always using my name.
Right.
I mean, you don't know how that shit pisses me off. Just let me be a part of, not no star or celebrity, just be a part of something, and to be a part of free school. And this destinies meeting and intercivilizational unity based upon revolutionary principles is an enormous achievement. And the people that I know and just had a chance to, touch during, talk, hey man, what you think, that type, during the event, to see that, to see free school was a revelation for a lot of people. It's either that revelation and that positivity or cynicism, pessimism, nihilism. Oh, nothing can work. Nobody can do anything, this type of thing. And of course, then to see children. This is a huge thing for a lot of people, to see children, because for a lot of people, their children and their grandchildren are beyond their reach. They've lost them already to pop culture, to whatever. But to see children with this type of discipline, you have to ask questions about their parenting and, of course, their mothers. It's so important. But I want to say more about our worldview relative to Reconstruction. But that's all I have to say about this. If we don't have anything to say, can we go on to the next part and then wrap everything into one. Is that all right? Um, I'm
Actually,
sorry.
there are some comments from Megna and Jahan.
I'm sorry. Forgive me.
Oh, no. Okay. So Megna said, the day after the event, a bunch of us went to the United House of Prayer. The minister gave a beautiful sermon where he reflected that giving up your life actually is the only way to create more life. And Megna says that your example embodies this truth. In giving everything, you've made so many people who are willing to give for the next generation. And then Jahan said, the event broke new revolutionary ground, especially with the use of art and culture alongside panels and roundtables. The pageant was a great revolutionary intervention. It is hard for me to think of anything else establishing the Black proletariat history of Philadelphia and its legacy of democratic struggle. This was very much tied to intercivilizational unity, as Doc has developed this idea from the experience of the Black proletariat striving to understand and embrace the democratic struggles of darker humanity. Intercivilizational unity, like that roundtable session, was very important. Especially because the concept of intercivilizational unity has directly inspired the work that Nandita and Raju do, taking this idea to the people of India, Asia, and beyond. They contributed new horizons of theory from their work, especially the role of Black people as the vanguard of colored modernity, and the importance of the free school producing a cadre that is intercivilizational. I feel more certain that we in the free school are defending the vision of the Black freedom struggle and bringing it to the world's people to resolve the contradictions of modernity. It was also very important for us to project Du Bois as a Black swan, whose ideas speak to the polycrisis facing the American people in this time. People traveled far and wide to hear this message in a time of ideological hunger. The world has only scratched the surface of humanity's full potential, and our work gives light for the road ahead. If we are all fortunate enough to live to struggle for the next 50 years, this will be a defining contribution that we offer to the world. Yeah. I think the civilization concept is a really big part of it, because I think from the Friday pageant, it was like excavating the evidence of a civilization that either like is in potentiality, but then I feel like the question is what has happened to the civilization in the last like 60 to 80 years. And I think what actually, the young people reciting it and people giving new life to it by actually acting or embodying or like making it live again is showing that the civilization has not been degraded, it hasn't died, but actually it still lives. And it can actually, like what Michelle is saying, which is that each person has a gift to give and must give it to actually make the civilization. And that it's not just like a dead memory or a nostalgic thing to like trot out from the archives, but it's actually something that we can inherit. And if we choose to inherit it, like we can actually build the future. And I feel like the interview and the archive visit and all of that made it really clear like that we do inherit something, and like knowing what that actually is in the fullness of it, and also making sense of like what is free school? Why do we do the things that we do? We don't just do it because it's like a habit or because like we're just used to it, but actually being like self-aware of like why is it that we're building these ideas. And I think for me, like it gives me confidence too, because I see that we have done a lot of work in the last 5 years. Like we actually have built something. Because I think for me, like I was thinking about it, and when I first came to Philadelphia, or like when in 2020 we were doing the Lenin Du Bois lectures and stuff like that, my mind was blown where I was like, oh my God, Lenin and Du Bois. And I really thought that you had just like worked it all out. But I think it's that I realize now that like it has been a long process over the last 5 years and the years to come of actually trying to make sense of these thinkers for this time. And it's not like answers just magically pop up out of your brain, but it is through struggle and through actually like being with the people. And I think that the pageant and the art and the creativity and imagination that we want to develop and to like give more of ourselves to, but then also like the sociological study to understand like where we are, what the civilization is,
and yeah, like what kind of people that it will create, I think is something that like influences our ideas, and I think our ideas also give to it. Where, yeah, like even in the United House of Prayer, like I think that like when we went on Sunday, the band was playing "Love's in Need of Love Today," and it's like yeah, like it doesn't just come out of nowhere. I think it comes from a place, and I think it comes from like that relationship too. But yeah.
Can I just like two small things? One of which is that part of what I've been trying to work out over the past couple of years is what does it mean for us to go on the ideological offensive? Because it's something that you had said a few years ago. Back when Free School was doing like Zoom for its live stream because of COVID, I think. And in some ways, part of how we do offense is through defense, if that makes sense. The defense of a revolutionary tradition, the defense of not just you, but of like the inheritance that you've also remained steadfast to, like all like whether it's Winston, Du Bois, King, Baldwin, Robeson. And the other thing is, sorry to bring up Cabral again, but the other thing I really liked about what Cabral said, which was very affirming in terms of how it was making sense of this event, was he's like, to the extent that the people keep their culture alive, that is exactly the sign of like their capacity for struggle. He's like, that itself is their resistance against like the ruling class or against the imperialist class, all that stuff. And I think the same is true for us to the extent that people have kept, like Michelle was saying, a certain music alive, a certain way of living alive, underneath all of the filth that has been heaped on them by a popular culture, a mass culture that is manufactured. Like that is our way of testing the capacity of people and of unearthing that. But I just wanted to add that based off of yeah.
I want to add something super brief too, but I promise to be brief because there's partially like I'm still processing so much of this, and I was saying really, like sometimes some things really also need some time to see what the real like impact or influence or effect of that transformation really will be. But already I think we can say really confidently that these 2 days and then also everything that was done to celebrate your life, your 80th birthday, and also the people that produced you, the social system that produced you, like has already borne some fruit, even in this week that has elapsed since. But on some of what
have borne some fruit even
in the week that's passed, like the past few days, I think we're obviously making sense of it as people who have also been transformed. We are slowly, reaching out to, or like, we'll be in contact with people who had attended, and things are, people will be reflecting on this for maybe not even weeks, but like months or years to come. And I know that we will be clearly in like this session of Free School is obviously for that, but yeah, there's a lot to take forward essentially. But to build off of what a couple people have said, whether it's the question of art or music, and even these, basically everything that was on display on Friday and Saturday, and on this question of this task of building a new civilization. I was thinking a lot about this question of beauty again, and I think it used to be something that we brought up in Free School, and I was like, are we kind of in the vein of some of the questions that we've been asking, like, are we in a time when, ideas or even ideas or revolution, or even beauty are things of the 20th century, and now we are in a time of like ugliness and no ideology and no history and no struggle, and that is why we have people take such pragmatic or cynical or pessimistic, narrow views of what today's time and people are capable of, or are we people who are saying like, precisely for those reasons, actually people should come back home to the ideas and beauty and also struggle and traditions, even the art and the music and even human drama that like actually has always animated people's lives and like, inspired them to change or influence human history and take their destinies into their own hands and the destinies of their children into their own hands. And I remember writing down to myself, like trying to reflect on the 2 days, like all that beauty, basically, especially on the pageant, whether it's your grandchildren, like the way I of all the songs that Reverend Cavaniss from the Mother Bethel AME sang, the one that like for me took on a new meaning was to keep your hand on the plow song, because I realized that one was like keep your eyes on the prize. That was the rendition that was developed in the civil rights movement, but that's also where many of the lines that James Baldwin actually quotes from in his various writings when he draws upon the spirituals to give meaning in his fiction or his essays, whether that's God gave Noah the water sign, no more the rainbow sign, no more water the fire next time. That's actually a line in that song. Or even I know my robes fit me well, I invited on the gates of hell. Like these are all songs that it's like one song that has so much in it, but then the way Reverend Captain, I think it was the last, of the first song she might have performed, and like her young pianist Stephen was just really exceptional. He stayed. Even though I'm certain Reverend Countess would have stayed if she hadn't been so busy and the head of like Mother Bethel, but also even Jamil dancing like kind of in the alcohol style of dancing, or in the Alvin Ailey style dancing to Johnny Hathaway. And I think all of us were a little unprepared because we're just kind of getting to know Jamil, but we've always held that song in so much esteem. We've always held that kind of dance. A black man, creating such beautiful shapes and images with, his body to music. It made me think about what we've been saying in terms of civilization. Represent, like the struggle for civilization is also the struggle to not only defend but also advance what the ideals of a new human being, a new kind of child, a new kind of society would look like with the ancient and the modern, by defending all that people have struggled and sacrificed and given up their lives to protect in order to pass down to future generations out of the spirit of love that is precisely what is under attack, is precisely what is trying to be interrupted and wrestled away from the people, and made so that children are empty vessels that can be, pumped full of like propaganda and cognitive manipulation. But people do strive for ideals, and they feel that they are worthy of beauty, but also what is good, what is pure, what is divine. And I think that's some of the language. That's some of the language that I feel that we've been kind of getting closer to through sociologically studying Black gods. And sometimes when we say that, it's a bit of like, because we've been so studying Arthur Fawcett and these churches of North Philadelphia that have come about during that period of the Great Migration. But when you've defined it as people are worshiping the gods of freedom and truth and beauty, like it does mean something, even if people articulate it in different ways or their own self-conception of what Jesus means to them, or what the immortal child means to them, what their mother means to them, what like yours means to not just you, but this whole community. And I mean, that is the role in some ways, like knowing the people, man knowing man, but also what we have been really elucidating through sociology and our studies, which I think was a process that was happening kind of concurrently and simultaneously in the development and planning for your birthday. Instead of it being that, we committed ourselves to doing sociological studies of Black gods, religious institutions, and the industrialization, we could have easily paused and, focused just on your birthday. But I think actually the concurrent development was really important, because I think in many ways it informed the shape ultimately of like say the pageant, or even some of the things that were brought out from even the Saturday roundtables on this question of like how are the people's capacity to be assessed, and how are they articulating their responses to the crisis. Actually, what is it that could actually bind people together? Is it something like the common basis of, say, a loyalty to the immortal child, or to the uplift of like a colored woman, like in the Damnation of Woman? Are those the types of things that can bring about a new kind of movement? But I was just thinking, and I've gone on for a lot longer, I meant to that I was thinking about that line from Baldwin's "The Fire Next Time" because at the end he asked in a couple different ways after going through so much of this very tremendous essay. He asks what will happen to all that beauty, and he says this in he means a couple different things, but you could also ask that of all the beauty that is like trapped within all these children today, children that come before, but also what will happen to all that is submerged in people if there's not a witness, if there is not someone, people who have taken up the struggle to unleash that core new purpose of building a new civilization. Will all that beauty die in the darkness, or will that beauty be unleashed for a new purpose? And will that beauty be able to know other, people and their beauty, so that in a world process that can actually people can get to know, the best of one another in the way they were always meant to, but have been kept from knowing each other. So, I mean, yeah, that's what this conversation made me think of. Even if there's obviously so much to say.
Guys, I got to get out of here. One, I left the house. I forgot my damn hearing aid, which means I can't hear a hell of a lot. Being said, I just want to make a couple of comments. The one, I think that celebration on Friday, even if appropriately, is not putting you on a pedestal. It says something about the fact that you don't quit just because of the fact that you turned 80. The game does not stop there. The other thing that strikes me about it is that, when you talk about civilization, you talk about, what we struggle for, you have to always hope and pray that in the present, there's something that's there with us now that's a part of what we're struggling towards. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that you guys deserve incredible credit for is the ability to manifest something about what we struggle for now. I think that's what wins young people, and I think that's what keeps us who are up there in the years going, if you know what I mean. But again, I got to get out of here because I can't hear everything, and I know if I can't hear everything, I'm missing a heck of a lot of good stuff. Y'all stay strong on that good stuff.
Okay. Okay. I guess we have to say something about last Tuesday's elections, which were, without going into a lot of detail, a repudiation of Trump and his administration. The numbers, the turnout, the fact that in Virginia, and I'm not focusing upon the candidates, more upon the people. The fact that the women running for governors in New Jersey and Virginia won by 16 percentage points, that Mamdani, a Muslim, pro-Palestinian, anti-Zionist, won in New York. A lot of things happened on the way to grandmother's house where deals were, of course, made and so on. This is politics. But in a lot of ways, we can interpret it as a rejection of Trump, of his economic policies of tariffs, which have only increased inflation for the people, his policies of war rather than peace, and his having been captured by the most extreme Zionist. People knew it. It was no secret to them, and they didn't like it. They don't like the conditions of their lives, and they don't like Trump, and basically they don't like the Democratic Party either. But I think to explain all of this at the deep level, the deep structural level, the deep historical level, we have to go back to Reconstruction and the defeat of Reconstruction. In some ways, I see the 240 some years of enslavement to be basically a prehistory to the now. Let me put it another way. I don't make slavery the central phenomenon, the central historical moment in the formation of the African American people. And I want to say why in a moment, but it is Reconstruction and the defeat of Reconstruction that is more important in the formation of the contemporary and modern African American people. The 125 years or maybe more since the defeat of Reconstruction have been the decisive decades or century and more of the formation of a people that have made history but are now potentially on the cusp of making a new history for themselves and for the nation and for humanity. This is the people we must understand. And when we talk about things like false black gods of the metropolis, which are in essence the black gods of the proletariat, who formed these gods? These were the result of the first migration from the South. But on Wednesday, I had lunch with Kathy and Shantanu. And I don't think we intended to go there, but I don't know whether it was Shantanu or Kathy or both, who asked the question, something to the effect of, would there have been deindustrialization as we've experienced it had Reconstruction not been defeated? Well, yes, but that was the question, right? And I said, well, had Reconstruction not been defeated, the history, the economic and political history of the country would have been different. First of all, the South would have leapt forward in industrialization. Remember, after slavery, the United States had a very weak manufacturing base. It was the Southern economy that produced the major wealth in the country, which meant, of course, the super exploitation of enslaved labor. The defeat of the old system that produced the majority of wealth in the country in the anti-slavery struggle, a struggle which was then foisted upon the shoulders of black folk. 180,000 blacks who fought in the Union Army, and that does not include people like Harriet Tubman, who conducted the Underground Railroad, or the spies, and so on. And it does not include the general strike. Some people still want to dispute this. But once labor decides to put its tools down, and once they decide to leave the site of their exploitation, and they do it in massive numbers, according to Du Bois, upwards of 500,000, that is a general strike in the midst of a civil war. Those Africans who went through the struggle to topple the slave system, when emancipation came, they had expectations and an imaginary. They were not unconscious. The experience of enslavement, but the struggle against it, had produced a high level of consciousness. And therefore, it seems extraordinary, but they were ready to assume leadership of the South. Had Reconstruction not been defeated, the history of democracy in this country would be very different. This would be a democratic country by now, not this fake democracy which we see today. And so as we look at Tuesday's election, although all the pundits and the politicians are talking about, well, this looks good for the Democrats in the 2026 election and what the Democrats did and what the Democrats must do, it is an avoidance of the principal question. Because let us be perfectly clear, the political establishment, while they want to get rid of Trump, they don't want a revolutionary remaking of the country along democratic lines. They don't want that. So the backdrop for what the free school does is the defeat of Reconstruction. It is not slavery. And the reason I say this, it's not to say that slavery was not horrific. It is not to say that slavery was not a crime against humanity, because it was. But out of that came the potentiality of a new people, a people whose interest was always and could be no other way on the side of revolutionary and radical change. There is no part of the American people who are more committed to democracy and the struggle for it than African Americans, which thus propels African Americans to the vanguard of the American people. And not in a negative sense, in a very positive sense, because when you say African Americans are on the forefront, the vanguard, the representatives of the potentiality of the nation, and as we often say, the proletariat as it must become. Another way to put that, white people have no potential if they think they're going to do this the white way. There is no white way out of this. There is, I'll say it again, there is no white way out of that. And the sooner white people wake up and realize it, the better the whole country can be. And that is the fatal flaw of Trump and the MAGA movement. Make America great, make America white, as though it was ever that. It's a fiction, a myth, demolished decades ago by Du Bois and of course, Jimmy Baldwin. Demolished it. If you want an answer to it, I say that, guys like Charlie Kirk or Tucker Carlson or Candace Owen, please, if you're intellectually honest, just investigate Baldwin's debate with Buckley at I think the Oxford or Cambridge Union. Just go there to start with. There is no white way out of this. And thus, that fact is manifested in now the crisis of the MAGA movement, a crisis of its very existence. And it will fall apart. It cannot be sustained. And this proves to me that there is no right way out of this. The majority of white people have not come to this conclusion. 20%, I estimate, have. And frankly, in a united, self-aware Black community on the forefront of struggle, that's all we need is 20%. We don't need all white people, because most white people have been rendered ahistorical, non-historical agents as a result of whiteness. I mean, I guess I'll say it again. It is, whiteness at this point comes off as clownish buffoonery. To hold on to this late in the game, everything considered, to even propose a white supremacist under the guise of a white civilizational way out of this is a position that only a comedian would take, a clown, a buffoon. It's so ignorant. I mean, and you look, if it ain't Black people, who is going to do it? At every strategic period in the history of this country, it has been Black people that have rose to the occasion, while white people were trying to make up their minds about what to do. And now, in the face of the great crisis on the international and national level, don't nobody know nothing no more. Oh, really? We didn't know. Or is it that you don't want to know? And so, in a lot of ways, I would say Black people are impatient with white people. They're very impatient with them, and I guess I would say this since it was mentioned. If art and music and dance, among other things, represents the high level, the elevated consciousness of a people, just take those things: art, music, song, dance. Take Black people, okay? Now take white people. White people have produced hardly anything. Hardly anything. They want to talk about how great whiteness is. Well, they're talking about the period after the Protestant Reformation. That goes back to the 16th century. Maybe white people were great, but no more. Once they discovered personal whiteness, use Du Bois's framing, they then began to go into a decline. But then this raises every question about the 21st century and the future and free school. And I want to just return to what we discussed a couple of weeks ago. The three pillars that define the free school. First of all, we have been forced to deal, as we should deal with it, the revolutionary history of the late 19th and early 20th century. Anyone that is talking about the revolutionary future of humanity cannot avoid the revolutionary history that comes out of the 19th and into the 20th century, at least the first half of the 20th century. And anyone that deals with this must deal with the thinking of Lenin and the Russian Revolution. And I've often said that the author of the Russian Revolution is Lenin, because it is his theory of imperialism, of the party, of the fight for democracy, of the national question, all of these questions, including that the world imperialist system would break at its weakest links rather than its strongest links. And that Russia could, in fact, be the first nation to break out of the capitalist or imperialist world system. And it did. So to talk about the Russian Revolution is really to talk about the theory of Lenin, which is not the same as Marx. Lenin is a kind of updating, a kind of revising, a kind of a breathing of new air into Marxism. Marxism, just to make it clear, Marxism had become a dead letter, especially in the hands of the greatest Marxist party, probably, the greatest Marxist party, which is the German Social Democratic Party, which was a big factor in the politics of Germany. It didn't play a role, for example, in preventing World War I. So what was their role all about anyway? But I say that to say that Marxism died in the German Social Democratic Party. Lenin revived it. And as we said before, Lenin took the experience of the French Revolution and developed it, thought it out to apply to revolutionary conditions in Russia in the early part of the 20th century. The concept that a revolution to be successful needs a revolutionary vanguard, and a revolutionary vanguard is a party that is ideologically anchored and scientifically grounded. By scientifically, we're meaning social scientifically grounded. That model worked. Now, there are all kinds of nuances and details that are often not discussed. For example, the revolution in Russia was really advanced when the Tsar and his family abandoned power. That meant that the Tsarist state, the traditional over 1,500-year history of Russia, that was always organized around a Tsar or Caesar. Tsar means Caesar, and the Eastern Orthodox Church. It all collapsed suddenly. And this is a very interesting thing when an ancient or old regime does not go through a perceptible period of deterioration, or maybe it had, but it just collapses suddenly. And no one was really prepared for the Tsar to throw in the towel. And he throws it in. And it leaves all of these political forces, especially in Petersburg, what was called Petersburg at that time, to kind of work things out. What do we do now? The state has collapsed. What will the state look like? What will democracy look like? You know, we've been fighting the Tsar for decades over the question of democratic rights for ordinary workers and peasants. Suddenly he's not there anymore. So how do we create a new state and a new political system and a new type of government? What role would political parties play? And Lenin, of course, said the Bolsheviks, albeit small, were highly disciplined, united, and committed, and had a theory. This was very important, that it was not just that they were going to seize power. So many people, they seized power. Well, they didn't exactly seize it. They just walked, the door was left unlocked, and you just walked in. But even Lenin did not know if the Bolsheviks alone could hold on to power. And they couldn't, but that's another question. But his concept of a vanguard party, or what he also called a party of a new type, perhaps achieved most of what it could achieve by the middle of the 20th century. A new way of conducting the struggle for power came into being, in particular, with the Black struggle and the anti-colonial struggles. Look, Gandhi and the independence movement struggled for decades, which did not break the British Empire, but it was the combination of that struggle and World War II and the financial crisis of the British Empire that broke it. And so they had to seek a new relationship to this now free nation and its leaders. They couldn't do it any other way. So the question became, do we set up a global system that limits their capacity of the Indian nation, of the Indian leaders, so we control the money? India does not have its own currency. It is now just on the cusp of creating its own government, its own state, and all of the ideological struggles that go with that. So the British said, well, we will interrupt and try to disrupt these processes. But up until the 1990s, especially after the assassination of Indira, all of these questions reappear for India, and especially with Modi's party, where they're going to rewrite, rethink Indian history. And frankly, it hasn't worked. The same was the case with Nigeria, with Ghana. British imperialism and colonialism could not rule over Africa and Asia anymore. It was broke, lost, and turned out. And just the way the czars walked away, or in 1911, the Emperor of China, just, I'm out. Can't do it no more. And so Sun Yat-sen comes to the fore, and such. But the British could not rule Ghana, could not rule Nigeria, could not rule Sierra Leone, and on and on. The French definitely couldn't. And then I could talk about the reasons, but I won't at this time. So a new possibility of a way to seize power that recognizes that humanity is on a whole new level of consciousness, that masses of people understood, one, that if they were to be free of colonialism, they would have to build new nations. And although those nations are based on the way the colonists and the Europeans drew the borders of various nations, nonetheless, the nation state and the struggle for national liberation, or anti-colonialism, had to go through that form. Frankly, as far as Africa is concerned, I hope we're coming to the end of that, and a new type of civilizational or inter-civilizational unity in Africa. But nonetheless, when King emerges, and his life is exemplary in the same way that Gandhi's is, when he emerges with this unbelievable education, with his character, with his seriousness, with his genius, when King says, in effect, that Gandhi and the path of the Indian independence movement is not just for India, but could be the way towards Black liberation and civil rights in this country. And of course, Kwame Nkrumah says almost the same thing about the Ghanaian struggle for independence. A new possibility of struggle emerges. Let me just say it again. The concept of the vanguard party that would educate the people and bring consciousness from outside of the people to the people may have realized all its potential by the middle of the 20th century. That is, by the time of the Chinese Revolution. And it is interesting that neither the Communist Party of China in its current form, nor the Communist Party of the Soviet Union were Leninist parties any longer. They were parties of the state. And therefore, there was not a contemporary, from the 1960s forward, examples of a vanguard party in the Leninist sense carrying out a revolution anywhere in the world. The great success under current conditions of technology, of the world systems, and all of this is the Black freedom movement. It represents, and I don't want to talk too long. The Black freedom movement represents more than just the moment that it existed in or the struggle for civil rights. Its history goes back to the beginnings of this nation itself. It is the inheritor of everything progressive in American history, while clearly rejecting everything that is backward and counter-revolutionary in American history. So when King, when he gives the I Have a Dream speech, it is as much a celebration of the democratic possibilities, but at the same time, a rejection of white supremacy. That speech is not understood. King always knew, was always aware of the ambiguities and contradictions of American history, which were not understood by Leninists and Marxists. Not understood at all, because they attempted to take a European model and apply it to America. And it couldn't have been, I know it because I was involved in trying to do it. You know, it wasn't workable unless you revise the Marxist-Leninist framework, and I'll get to that. But then it raises the question, which is still on the table, of political parties. We talked about that. The modern political party system essentially goes back to the French Revolution, and then a long history going through the 1840s, and then the widening of the franchise leading to political parties as election mechanisms and devices. Rather than revolutionary, parties which had been revolutionary, such as the German Social Democrats and others, became a part of the system rather than a part of attempting to overthrow the system. Leading to what we have today, where most left parties are mainly interested in either mobilizing protest or running for election, or supporting people running for election. They miss a critical component of serious radical and revolutionary transformation of a society, and that is the change of ideological relationships. What King called a radical revolution of values. That's what he was saying, in effect. That the ideological relationships in the society must be changed. The ideological struggle perhaps is not as dramatic as these films that show the Russian proletariat storming the Winter Palace. Well, that's a film. That's not a documentary. Wasn't nobody filming that. When you see them storm, that's Eisenstein, and what he was doing is trying to, dramatize the Russian Revolution. Or you take John Reed's 10 Days That Shook the World. You understand? But it is not, as it were, a biography of the Russian Revolution. I think the Chinese might have a more accurate portrayal of their history, but we can come to that in a moment. So a lot of people outside of those like the DSA who go into the Democratic Party to take it over and to run for office, and that's what Mamdani represents. That's what Brandon Johnson in Chicago represents, and so on. But I think just as a measure, Mamdani or Brandon Johnson in Chicago, both mayors now, cannot compare to Hal Washington, who was not like Mamdani, like they say he got really lucky. But Hal Washington, decades being on the front ranks of the struggle for democracy and against white supremacy. Neither Brandon Johnson or Zoran Mamdani can show any resume or record of having participated in any of these struggles. So worldview-wise, neither of them is on the same page with Hal Washington, who in fact came out of the Black labor movement, came out of the Black civil rights movement, and therefore broke a machine that dominated Chicago, opening the possibilities for a new city, a new set of ideological relationships among people. In this sense, the free school, as we've written and talked about this so often, draws upon Lenin and Du Bois, the Russian Revolution and the Black Freedom Movement. Having said that, however, in this moment in history, the most important thing is that we learn from the Black Freedom Movement, whose potentialities have not been exhausted. I know last time, or the time we talked about it before, I said that the Black Freedom Movement had produced a richer, more dynamic, more scientific understanding of the revolutionary process, especially in this country. Put it another way, revolutionaries in this country and people who fight for peace and democracy have more to learn from the Black freedom movement than the world communist movement. This orientation, this anchorage in the revolutionary history of this country, in the history of consciousness of the people, and of the Black revolutionary tradition, is the most important thing that must be recognized by revolutionaries, especially the younger generation. You know, you have you have a lot of young leftists who are now reading Du Bois's Black Reconstruction. And that's a good thing. But if you're going to read it right. Don't distort it. If they understand what he is saying in Black Reconstruction, they will understand that the modern movement and modern Black people come out of the cauldron of that struggle. The fact that Black folk, and I'll say it again, never accepted the regime of white supremacy, never accepted it. Okay, you can point to one person. Let's say Clarence Thomas, okay, but that's a throwaway. But Black folk never accepted it. It's all over everything. It's the music, it's the art, it's the writing, it's the James Baldwin, it's everything. While most of the nation accepted it as normal. Which makes, therefore, Black people special in the constellation of the American people. And therefore are not a derivative of, i.e., the American Lenin. No. See, if you say that because you don't understand how that theory in many ways is exhausted. It's the late 18th, 19th, and early 20th century. Good run, a lot achieved, but it is exhausted. Hence, the energy of radical social change came and comes out of the Black movement. This is what we have to understand. And for example, the DSA, they just can't get it. It's no way in the world. First of all, they've abandoned ideology for politics, for bourgeois politics. Once you do that, you're out of the game. The Communist Party of the U.S., as I've said before, has become your traditional standard social democratic party. We don't need a lot of ideology. Ideology becomes a problem when you're trying to, quote, win people. I've heard this so much. The people don't want to hear that. Well, how do you know what the people want to hear? You know all the people? You know, believe me. Oh, well, we trying to appeal to the working class. You know, all that old, you know. No. You've abandoned the revolutionary struggle by abandoning the ideological struggle. And you are not going to remake this country unless you alter the ideological relationships in it. I guess I've said enough about that. Our discovery, which is a Du Boisian discovery, of the Black proletariat, the recognition as we are learning that Black folk are not essentially an oppressed group, but a highly organized people committed to struggle. If you can't see that, there is no revolutionary possibility. The only thing you could retreat into is kind of a cynicism. Nothing can be done because the majority of white people voted for Trump. No, a lot can be done because even in that, contradictions arose, and we see them now. And you just can't go by what Trump, because he's either delusional, early stages of Alzheimer's. The man ain't in his right mind. So he's going to talk that big Willie talk and so on and so forth. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of people that believe in America first saying, well, why is Israel and Zionists running the government? Why are you so deferential to them when we can't even get our food stamps? You understand what people ain't dumb, they see it. You said one thing while you was running, now you're doing something completely different. What's up? What's up? But that's the nature of the contradictions in a system that is disintegrating. And thus, ideology, what is happening? And all the people ask, what is happening? Can there be a road forward, a path forward? And of course, for us, we always say Du Bois and Martin Luther King, Robes, that nucleus of an atom where there was such energy, such knowledge, such potentiality to transform ideological relations. And by the way, I don't want anybody to misunderstand me when I say the Black freedom movement constitutes a more creative and dynamic center of ideas and human possibility than did the World Communist Movement. The second pillar of our thing is the Black freedom movement. And I've said it all. I mean, the Black freedom movement is not insignificant. It is not a throwaway like most leftists would have it. We're going to drop down and now Mamdani is our new God. No. I mean, at best, he will be a footnote in the great history. Huh?
I want to see Melania Trump wear the hijab in New York.
Oh, yeah.
When she visits New York, now she has to cover up because the Muslims are in charge.
Okay, well, we'll say a Muslim is the mayor. The Muslims are not in charge. By no means. Because, you still got Wall Street and you still got the banks. And Mamdani you talk about kiss the ring. For him to get where he's at, he had to kiss, well, not even the ring, the butt, the ass, of the people who ruled New York. And they ain't about ready to give it up. They realized that you couldn't go forward with Cuomo or Eric Adams, but it would take a different type of face, and that's what it was about. But the deeper and longer term possibility is realized to the extent that the people can be won to their revolutionary history, and the most immediate one, the Black struggle. Black people have already been won to it. They never gave up on it. You get a few people running around talking shit. Matter of fact, there was even one at my birthday who said what I said. I was involved at one time in the theory of insurrectionary violence. Remember I'm talking about? We still are. I said, that's you. I'm talking about me. Remember? Yeah. I'm saying, look, money, come on now. Ask me why. See, because that framing of things is already a acknowledgement that you've given up on the people. So you've adopted an elite strategy of a few, quote, revolutionaries carrying out acts of insurrectionary violence. Now, I believe that when I was 20 years old, I had to get that up. Because, I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here today if I believed that. I'd be somewhere sitting at the bar getting my first drink of the day. You know what I'm saying? Or just smoking weed, or just dropping out. I could say crack, but I ain't gonna go. But I mean, I would have no way of understanding the people and the possibilities. Just in the same way that Democratic Socialists of America are former leftists who have decided that there is no revolutionary way out, that the people are no longer a factor in history. Well, that whole theory does not see Black people. That has always been the great problem of the American liberal left social democrats. They do not see Black people. And there are many reasons for that. Finally, intercivilizational unity. And again, I think free school has made this a living possibility for a lot of people, especially when one considers that, as Du Bois said, Black people are a civilization. He said it when he went into the South, in Tennessee, in the early part of the 20th century. He said, this is a civilization in potentiality. The question for us, is it now a civilization in actuality? And does the Black social system constitute a civilization alternative to white and white supremacist civilization? And I think it does. And thus, in a country like ours, in a world like ours, to be on the same level as the world movement. One, there is every reason to assert intercivilizational unity among the American people. Well, of course, intercivilizational unity assumes, one, Black civilization, and two, that white folk will abandon whiteness as their principal identity. Now, for them, a good part, I mean, you know, they will scatter in different ways, but the best option for white people is to gradually accept and become, if not physically Black, civilizationally and culturally Black. They don't have anything. What do you have? Nothing, or very little. Let me put it so, very little. Every measure of modern civilization is to be found among Black people. And that's not just a hypothesis. It's empirically verifiable. Any claim that Black folk are inferior to white people, it's delusional. You know, like Charlie Kirk running around all these campuses trying to pump them up with white is great and white is this and we did all this and we going back to the Bible to show that white supremacy is God's will. All that old nonsense. Look, on any day, I take Prophet Cherry over the whole evangelical white movement, the Catholic Church and everything. Look, I go with Prophet Cherry. The white man is the devil and hated by God. You don't get no more direct than that. I mean, like it or not. Or is it also a fact that we are on the cusp of a second Protestant Reformation. What the hell does it mean? When Martin Luther went against the Catholic Church and its hierarchy, what does it mean? When deep in the bowels of Black Christianity and Black religious and spiritual practices is a rejection of God, of white supremacy. What does that mean? When the God of Black people, the gods of Black people, are manifested in the struggle for what is right, for justice, for peace. What does that mean? A Protestant, maybe we won't call it a Protestant Reformation, but it carries similar weight. And so, like when you all go to the United House of Prayer for All People, even a Presbyterian in not good standing, it says, I found religion. If this is God, then I'm down with that. Or when we went to the estate of Father Divine, and you saw what they represented. And by the way, you know, a lot of Black people, a lot of Black prophetic figures claim to be God. Father Divine said, I'm God. You understand? Well, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, he works as well as any other one that says, you know, Daddy Grace said he is God. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said God came to him in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. Well, I mean, that narrative is just as good for me as the narrative of the Catholic Church and St. Paul, who said, slaves, obey your masters and all that. So, what is wrong with a God of the oppressed or of the dispossessed, Howard Thurman? That's the God I can identify with, not the gods of white supremacy. This is hugely important. And so what goes on in the bowels of the Black community and in the churches and in communities under conditions of deindustrialization and poverty is as significant as Martin Luther proclaiming that man's relationship to God can't be mediated by the institution of the church and its hierarchy. I mean, I take the same thing away from Father Divine. Our relationship to God, who I am, he said, I'm God, cannot be mediated by white people. You dig what I'm saying? When Prophet Cherry said, I'm a Jew, and the Jews said, no, you're not. We don't recognize you. Prophet Cherry said, well, I don't recognize y'all. So we even. You see what I'm saying? That resistance in itself is highly important, because once Black folk break, as they have done, with white gods, Charlie Kirk can run around talking that shit all he wants. You still can't sing. You ain't got no great religious music. You understand? And if you can't sing about it, I don't know how valuable it is. But I say all of that to say, yes, we have located where the revolutionary agent of American history is. We are firmly convinced of that. And unless that agent of history is activated, made real for this time, there is no possibility of a revolutionary history, but a revolutionary outcome. But as long as they're black people, as long as the institutions of black life continue, as long as the black church produces women like Reverend Cavaness, that is not insignificant, a representative of civilization in the mold of Coretta Scott King, of Martin Luther King. We saw it before our very eyes. You know what I'm saying? As long as we produce Minister Ishmael, man is divine. Man is divine. And it can't be mediated through white supremacy. Man is divine. This is hugely significant and the product of a people's resistance. And I argue, in the last instance, the result of this modern people who emerge out of the defeat of Reconstruction, but who never gave up on freedom, still haven't. And just the last thing, the white man is more active in the cultural life of black people than they've ever been. You know, Keith, back in the days of Rhonda, we go up to the Uptown, there ain't even no white people in there, it's all black people. And here you got Stevie Wonder, the Marvelettes, the Temps, Marvin Gaye, all that. But the white people, we're not interested in that. We got the Beatles. Okay, keep the Beatles, money. Y'all got that. You see what I'm saying? I mean, they didn't even come. You get about, in the whole theater of 500-600 people, you get about 3 white people. And they were probably doing it as an anthropological study for their dissertation. But the fact of the matter is, recognizing the power of this, recognizing what Curtis Mayfield represented. And he says, the people must prove to the people a better day is coming. If he ain't said nothing else in his life, that's enough. The people must prove to the people a better day is coming. They understood that. The ruling class understood that. They understood Marvin Gaye. They understood all of this music. And it has not been transcended. Hip hop notwithstanding. In fact, hip hop has been an unmitigated disaster for black people and black youth. Sadly, black young people who listen to too much hip hop have a distorted personality and cognitive dissonance. They have a weak identity and usually have to fall back on some theory or position that comes out of white people or the white academy. Okay, I'll stop there. Yes, go ahead, my brother.
Just a small piece of what you said. Mainly Mandani, because I agree with what you said about the DSA and other activist parties. And I think I qualify PSL as an activist party as well, because of their position on Trump and working families parties, all that. You basically said everybody, I guess we don't have to exclude anything, but talking about the left. The Mamdani, while I'm critical because he had that conversation with Obama, even though Obama didn't endorse him, he called Mamdani and said, "Oh, if you ever want to have a phone call, we can have a phone call." Or he had the meeting with the NYC business community and tried to win them over. I think his supporters, the left, have flexed that to be, and I think this is the positive thing. We're not rogue Democrats. We're running on an affordability platform, which is back to the Bernie Sanders strategy of the 99% versus the 1%. And I think that's a positive thing. And I guess I just want to comment on the election in general, even though it wasn't a midterm election, because it was a disaster for the Republicans. I think it confirms my view that Donald Trump is a lame duck president
I
in
think you're right.
his second term, and ever since the assassination attempt, he's been to choose my words since we're in the church, carefully a cup for Israel. And
You
I guess I
did
didn't
great.
use carefully. But et cetera, et cetera. The free schools position, and it goes back to what you said, Doc, back in 2016 at the Revolutionary Science and Radical Times conference. Um, that if Donald Trump is a fascist, so what does that make Hillary Clinton? It's an economic. Who said? I guess it's James Carville. So he said it's the economy, stupid. And all the Republicans who bought into culture war, the so-called woke Republicans, who were especially interested in cultural issues, evangelical Christianity, anti-abortion, same-sex, trans, blah blah blah. What the free schools position has been is that. The people are most interested in a new economy. I mean, I guess if you were, shit, I've lost it. But
if you were,
when we,
you said the people are interested in a new economy.
The people who voted for Obama, the people who voted for Trump, look at the results of the last election. These people didn't just suddenly become Democrats. Where did they all come from? These are people who are voting for Trump, or voting for Obama and flipping, and deciding, they're punishing. These are protest votes, and they're protesting the establishment. It doesn't matter if you're on the Republican establishment or the Democratic establishment. And, so while I'm critical of Mamdani, I'm critical of entryism, I was motivated on his election day speech when he quoted narrative. And he said, there comes a time when a nation comes into, being, I forget the rest of it.
When a country steps out from the old into the new.
That's the main part. When Trump does not deliver peace, when Trump does not deliver affordability, and he leans into his white nationalist base, which we've always been against, he loses, and he loses really hard, and it was a complete disaster for him. And it's like we never thought it would come to be, because he said he could shoot someone on the streets of New York and people would still vote for him, and it was true. And that was one of the things he didn't lie about. But what has been his stumbling block is Israel and his Faustian compromise with the neocons on foreign policy and the economy, namely the Big Beautiful Bill, and now this shutdown. And the reason I bring all this up is this battle over American politics. Mamdani said that the mayor that he most would like to emulate would be LaGuardia, where he sees himself as a Roosevelt, an FDR type figure. And that's different from, what you said, Harold Washington, these types. He's not from the same progressive tradition, respect to him because he won. And I appreciate the fact that his party, took a step back, or, his faction took a step back away from identity politics to do that. That was a positive thing. But it's like you said, the ideological struggle is paramount. And the fact that he doesn't see, he probably doesn't see what causes the Obama coalition to come together. It will probably be his stumbling block. And I guess the last thing I want to say is, I guess, preschool and the event, I appreciate preschool and NEDOC because it gives young people the opportunity to struggle. Where would I be without preschool? Where would any of us be without preschool? We would be out of the struggle, because the ideological struggle is the struggle. Without preschool, Doc, you said, we'd be burnt out. Yeah, it's true. A lot of that will come after we did burn out. But I think it could be worse. You could be in jail. You could be dead. You could be, in a dead end party like PSL or DSA. Um, but yeah, so the event was to say, there is a struggle and you can be a part of it.
Yep.
And it wasn't for a few people, but at least there was a possibility. I guess it is frustrating for people, like what you said just lastly about whiteness, that we're in this twilight zone where I keep on seeing the same shit. I think Gore Vidal called it American amnesia, where first Obama, now Mamdani, but this isn't what causes progressive change. And that's what young people want to be involved with.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to.
I thought you were sick. You better.
Yeah, I live for this stuff. So. Okay, I just want to say that building on the other parts of what you spoke about in terms of what is that creative, dynamic edge of the Black freedom movement. And yeah, it reminded me of that quote that we often bring up by Diane Nash. And she said that nonviolence was the greatest discovery of the 20th century. And one way to interpret that statement is nonviolence represents the possibility for mass democratic participation in revolutionary change. And that's what the freedom movement represents. It's also what the civil rights movement represents. And I think another way to interpret the meaning of the Third American Revolution, and of nonviolence in particular, is I think it's a mistake to look at nonviolence as just a mode of protest against, the regime of Jim Crow, but that it was also opening up this path to, like you said, to change the ideological relationship among the people themselves.
Yep.
And
that's. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and so. I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up as like one sign of the evidence. Of
it makes, if I could just say, it makes the task of revolutionaries, it elevates it to a higher level because you have to win the people.
Yes.
You can't just storm the Winter Palace. You have to win the people, and that's what King successfully did. And of course, Robeson understood it so well, to win the people, to convince the people, to show the people of an alternative. And that's what we're doing. That's what I would.
Because, it's even evident in instances where, there was a big internal debate within like the SCLC, for example, of should the movement go to the north? In the context of, people like Nash saying, oh, our work in the South isn't finished yet. But King's decision to bring the movement to the North was also to say that this movement involves the entirety of the American people and can involve the entirety of the American people. And I also connect that to Gandhi, where it's like throughout those decades when the Indian freedom movement was struggling, striving, had these moments of these high points, but also the low points of the Indian freedom struggle. It's like the movement itself had to go throughout the entire nation, the entire Indian nation. It had to involve increasingly larger and larger portions, segments of the masses of Indian people. And I think for us, even when we say like sometimes, because sometimes it's like, okay, wait, is 20% of white people a large number? Is it a small number of white people? Actually, like, if you consider, okay, like, the size of the American population itself, like, even winning 20% of white people in a revolutionary movement would be a big achievement. And
I think they've already been won.
Okay.
I think there are enough white people. And I think you pointed out, Samir, and I know Emily has made this point, that up in Johnstown, where they were preparing for a strike, counties that voted twice for Obama and then voted for Trump. And a great majority, overwhelming majorities of white people. The fact that they voted for Obama suggests something has gone on at the level of ideological relations, and not because of Obama. It's because of the constant spillover and the memory. And I don't know, see, it's a difficult thing to know how white people's memories work about these things. But there is something in that Black civil rights movement that a good part of white people don't want to go back before that. Now, Trump can manage an electoral majority, or has been able to, but he cannot change the views, first of all, of Black people, but this group of white people who said, no, we're not, they feel, I think in some ways they're white people who feel that their moral foundation, what they have come up to consider morality, comes out of the civil rights movement. Even if they get it from their families, from their parents who lived through that, they're not going to go back. I think, interesting and ironically enough, that if you take, let's say, the Asian population, I think many of them would have a more difficult time than a lot of white people in recognizing. Is that fair to say? You know, I think there is a memory, a historical memory, and I think white people who come close enough to Black people through the music, through other things, their memory is jarred. This is what the problem, and a lot of white people do see possibilities for themselves and for the nation in Black people. You know, so I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, the only other thing I wanted to add is I think the development of nonviolence, especially in the American context, is maybe the first modern mode of revolutionary struggle that is organized around the recognition of, like, what we say, the divine in man.
Yep.
If that makes sense? Like,
Yep.
it's like when you hear or read people like King or like Reverend, like James Lawson, so much of the theoretical, philosophical basis of nonviolence emerges from this recognition of the divine potential
I
of
think you
human
got
beings.
it right. Yes, yes.
And I
You
think
hear that in King all the time.
and that has to be recognized as this great leap in how modern mankind does struggle, does politics, and struggles for, like, it's what it needs to become, basically. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up as like how I'm making sense of what you're saying. And then I think, sorry, just the last thing is I do think it's worth considering how like the nature of the civil rights movement created new forms of political organization as well, in the form of not a vanguard party, but a vanguard people's movement, which itself had many different things feeding into it, and itself was also like unleashing that existing potential of Black people's social organization since like Reconstruction, since the defeat of Reconstruction. And in some ways you could say maybe even created new habits, new social forms itself in the life world of Black people. But yeah, that was the last thing.
Well, Yeah, actually, I want to build on your point about man is divine, and then the way it politically manifested in the civil rights movement and the Black freedom struggle. Because actually, in some ways, like so much of our work in free school, the sociological study, also just in free school, is identifying what happened after the Third American Revolution, not just on behalf of the state, but what happened to the people. And in some ways, I think, because in the Black Gods group, we're basically trying to make sense of like, what do we even mean by man is divine? And what is the role of institutions that have held, like, whether you go to the United House of Prayer, the Nation of Islam, Prophet Charity, Church of God, there's a distinct kernel of that, a very aggressive form, condensed form of man is divine. That, like, there's something very freeing about Father Divine being like, yeah, I am God.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, it actually, I thought a lot of this because of the Jesus Christ in Texas short story, where Du Bois is basically like, yeah, Jesus did come back. He came back, and he came back as a Black man. And the problem was not that Jesus didn't do what he was supposed to do. The problem is that the people weren't ready for him to come in the form of a Black man. Right? Like that's the whole message of the peace mission, which is we like or yeah, like Farad Muhammad and Elijah Muhammad, the whole idea of the Black, like God is God. The message of God is here. Came as man. He came on a silver platter. He was here, but the people were not ready. Humanity was not ready to accept that man is divine. That God came back in the form of a Black man, and but it kind of was what you were saying made me think
Or at
that.
least a push tune
Sorry,
from Afghanistan. But,
Yeah,
but that's
right,
another
right.
question.
yeah, Asian. But the interesting thing is like the thing what you're saying about that when you read King and Lawson, you still get the sense, and I think maybe it comes from Howard Thurman, the great advancement of Howard Thurman in connection with Gandhi, like how Nandita was basically like this concept that man must know man, and also that man is divine has actually revolutionary roots across darker humanity. Even if you go to like let's say Buddhism, but that it was advanced and crystallized through political struggle in many different scenarios. But that in some ways what happened after King was assassinated was some institutions I think lost their way believing like that man is divine is inherently forces you to contend what you're saying, contend with man. Like you must win the people. Right? And in some ways, like when we look at Black churches that were so significant in the civil rights struggle, these great institutions, that the thing that has to be rediscovered is that do not forget that man is divine. Like, in some ways, that's our diagnosis of the capitulation to the Democratic Party or the capitulation to electoral politics, for example. But what about when man is divine? I don't know.
This is a very important thing. If you recall Saint Augustine, man is made for God and will not have peace until he finds him.
Right.
This is until he finds him. You know, so it makes all the sense in the world for Father Divine to say I'm God, or a manifestation of God, or Elijah Muhammad to say that God came to me in the person,
Right.
which meant that as you are saying it, man is divine is a way of saying that man is God, or man is made for God and will not find peace until he finds him. And that's St. Augustine.
Yeah.
But oh God, I'm sorry.
Oh no. And well, one last tag on is I really like the way you phrased it, Doc, of this idea that we're building on about the second Protestant Reformation.
Oh yes.
I actually really like the phrase of you said that with this potential second Protestant Reformation, what's on the table is that man is divine, unmediated by white supremacy. Actually, I found that was pretty deep because I mean, in some ways,
That
that's
upsets the whole apple cart.
yeah. Actually, it kind of clarifies. It kind of even clarifies where we're at in human history, even when it comes to like so-called white people,
Yeah,
right? Because
you sound like the nation's so-called white man. The
well, I mean, I'm kind of
so-called.
trailing Baldwin, but like, I mean, where it's like, I actually think in some ways, I mean, this requires more sociology, but the sense I get is in places even like, yeah, like Johnstown, formerly industrialized areas, especially those areas where you do actually have more opportunities for intermixing of white and black folk because they were working. Some of them were working side by side, some of them were working in segregated areas of the same factories. But you now have areas like Johnstown, maybe Gary, Indiana, like certain places where you have abandoned people who are white and black. And then there's intermixing. And I mean, we don't know these areas, right? But the question is, does that message of man is divine, you are divine, unmediated by white supremacy, unmediated by Trump, unmediated by war policies, does that message speak to basically white people, speak to the people? Like that I deserve more. I am made for more. We are made for more.
Okay.
And Trump cannot, whether it's Trump or war policies or white supremacy, however people understand white supremacy in the concrete form, whatever language they use, that I am made for more. I deserve more. I deserve to not have to depend on the fact that I have $0 in my SNAP. You know, like I deserve more. I'm made for more, and it's unmediated by white supremacy. Like I kind of do think that, like philosophically and ideologically speaking, we're kind of onto something here. So yeah, and it's also I guess I'll just say, but that's why I'm kind of interested in. I'm even interested in the way it's expressed in music because, like, when Megan and Jahan were staying with me, we were talking about the power of Michael Jackson, and then when you had sent Denise Williams to a lot of us, who's also from the same place, Gary, Indiana, you realize that there's something like not just in the religious institution, but there's something in the music. There's something being expressed in the music
There's no question.
that also like resonates with this whole concept of like I am made for more. Man is made for more. Man is made for God, and it has to be unmediated by what's perceived. It must be like the evidence is all around me that yeah. So anyway,
Could I just bring up one small point? These populations that you see in places like Johnstown and Butler, Pennsylvania, especially among white folk, they are like stranded populations. The world has abandoned them, the society has abandoned. They're like a stranded population who live day to day, grinding down, where they can get all the drugs they want, but their SNAP cards don't, you know. And this is very important. I would agree with you. This idea that man is divine, unmediated, is a message that people would love to hear.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was actually thinking of something in the earlier part of what you were saying and what Jeremiah was also responding to. The fact that I thought it was really deep that you're saying that this idea of a vanguard of the people as opposed to a people's movement, like basically this idea that comes out from the Russian Revolution, it died out by, I mean, it was exhausted by the middle of the last century. And actually I was thinking of it because there's this interview of Nehru which comes out, which is done by this leftist journalist in India around 10 to 12 years after independence. And sort of the question, I mean, I don't want this to be a digression, but the question that comes up in the interview is that the interviewer is asking, is this the time or is this the Nehruvian epoch? And Nehru, goes to correct him to say, no, this is the authentic Gandhian era. And really the question that I think the journalist is asking of Nehru is that, because you are the continuation of the freedom struggle, do you see it as your responsibility to train a cadre who is going to carry forward the meaning of the freedom struggle in the decades to come? And I think, Nehru's answer to that, I mean, it just hit me from, what you guys were saying. His answer was that, no, I'm not interested in training a handful of cadre to carry out my thought or anything, but the real cadre is being trained, in the 700,000 villages. And like I was thinking because, I feel like this is something new that was worked out with the Indian freedom struggle, that, like what you were saying, basically, that it's not a vanguard party which brings revolutionary knowledge to the people, but really it's the building up of a new people from the bottom up. And I say this because I think it clarifies something to me about what Jenna was also saying about, non-violence in this country, and especially King and Lawson. And I think it's, something to do with the way for King and Lawson, how they saw the role of philosophy, as opposed to, how often philosophy, I mean, like, of course, in academia today, but I think even like going far, like beyond that, I think there's a way to look at philosophy as almost as a system. And I think for King and Lawson, and I think, even though, this is not how Gandhi ever talked, but I think even for him, philosophy is a means to democratize knowledge. When we're talking about this idea of what is a movement of this century, and maybe it was worked out in the last century, that's what you're saying, that revolutionary knowledge does come from the people. And there is a revolutionary movement, but we are talking about what the role of that movement is. This is, related to the question of what does free school do, what is the role of free school. And I think this is also, I mean, it's making me think about how we treat philosophy, how we engage with philosophy, when it's really a way to identify that our relationship to knowledge is ultimately, it must be mediated by ourselves. Like, what is the mediation towards knowledge? How do we, like, what is our relationship to knowledge? What is this, how do we understand our assumptions? And I think the way that like King goes to philosophy, how he does, like, I'm thinking of Pilgrimage to Nonviolence, right? His way of dealing with the assumptions, I think, is a way to really identify what revolutionary knowledge even means, without it being something. I mean, he, like, when King talks about nonviolence, it's not King bringing up the idea of a foreign revolutionary Gandhi and to put those ideas up, upon the people, but he's really identifying in what ways this comes from. It comes from the history of Black America. And I think, I mean, I'm talking about philosophy because I think
This is
his
very
dealing with philosophy is, and free schools dealing with philosophy, I think, is unique. And this is a way, I think, that a movement of this time, and to really to bring out to identify revolutionary knowledge that comes from the people. I think you need to deal with philosophy differently than yeah.
Like,
Yes,
I know I'm continuing to interrupt.
go on.
Yeah. I think I sent you the article that was in the Wall Street Journal on the financial crisis of elite universities, and in particular the University of Chicago. I sent it to you. I got it from Johan, by the way. So, but I'll send it. Um, to the point of philosophy and how we see it as indispensable and how we're always, dealing with philosophers, especially of the Enlightenment, and so on and so forth. The University of Chicago shut down admissions to all of its graduate programs, including philosophy. I would not be surprised if something similar doesn't happen in other elite universities, because maybe the knowledge that you're talking about, where philosophy becomes part of the working up of new knowledge, is not compatible with a nation in chaos and crisis and war. That philosophy, and even at the University of Chicago, which has probably the best department, at least graduate department of philosophy, where they said, well, the hell with it, let's get on. We have a budget crisis, philosophy is not that popular, and so let's move on to the next thing. But I think this is an indicator of a deeper pessimism of the, Peter Thiel type,
Okay.
I know we're getting to the end, but I just wanted to say too that if you listen to a lot of evangelicals, like white evangelicals, a lot of times they'll use terms like "we're doing spiritual warfare," and I kind of heard some of that language growing up, and they'll be like, "We put on the armor of God and we do spiritual warfare," and it's like, okay, well. Yeah, fine, let's do it. It's like, and but it's more a question of what is the God you worship?
No question.
And it's like, okay, your God is a God that bombs people.
Yeah.
There's like, even for like liberal white Christians, their God basically, funny enough, has all the same values of the Democratic Party somehow.
It turns out
It's like, yeah, your God is the God of the Democratic Party, and you can tell a lot about a people by the face of the God that they worship.
Well, the thing I ask is, why did it take the Pope, the American-born Pope,
Right.
so long to come out against this genocide?
Right.
Why has the Catholic Church, which was not outstanding in the fight against Nazism in Germany, why do you still always hesitate to condemn the oppressor?
Yeah. And like
It has something to do with the God that they pray to.
and it's like with like Black Christianity or these Black religious movements that we're interested in, it's not just that their God has a black face, but it's also what their God does.
Yes.
Their God is a God that serves the people. Their God is a God, let's say with Father Divine, who literally was at the front lines of the struggle against segregation. Like they were pioneers of the civil rights movement
I would agree with that.
during like the
I
1930s,
agree with that.
and they were accused of being communists for it. And it's like, even with like Howard Thurman, he's like, our Christ is a Christ that emerges from the poor, emerges from the oppressed, and serves the people. And it's like, it's not just about what race, it's like not about like just the skin color, but it's like, for Jesus to be, like, let's say Jesus Christ in Texas, like, Jesus as a black man, as a darker man in the Jim Crow South, who also visits the convict, the escaped slave, or the escaped, like, I guess it wasn't slave at that time.
No.
Sharecropping worker. And and I think that is a reflection of, like, to the extent that human beings can have a God reflected back to them that they can aspire towards, it's based off of the actual moral principles that
No
that God
question.
embodies.
I think that's what it is.
And it's like,
But like Alice, man must know man,
Right.
but in knowing man, we must know that to which they aspire, and that to which they aspire is often manifested in their gods.
Yeah.
You know, the sacred is so much tied up. And this concept of what is sacred is very, very important. And if the sacred is the human, then it it's understand. We're back to man. Man is divine. There's something sacred in humanity, and thus humanity must be protected against evil, or as the Muslims say, against the devil. You know, this is very important. I think. I guess we have some comments.
We have some more comments. So Jahan said, looking at the Mamdani phenomenon, I see something similar to what motivated MAGA populism, at least at first, which is opposition to endless wars and the economic assault of the elite. But both MAGA populism and now Mamdani populism, if that's a thing, neither of them have rooting in the Third American Revolution. Though Mamdani won the black vote as the Democratic nominee, there's little evidence that he is drawing from the Third American Revolution. I respect the moral position that he took on Palestine, which set him apart from every other major Democrat. And we can see his election in the context of the collapse of support for Israel and how that's impacting both parties, including a civil war in the Republican Party over Israel, where the Republican Jewish coalition is apparently calling Tucker Carlson the greatest anti-Semite and that he was trying to revive the Hitler Youth. I also think that the splintering of MAGA, especially over Israel and Zionism, may show the implosion of whiteness and the white supremacy social system. It would be unimaginable 2 years ago to see the masses of white people turning on Israel like this. But if Mamdani wants to carry out his promises, we would advise him to study King and Du Bois. But then he has a second note, which is it's really fascinating how quickly politicians rise and fall in the eyes of the people in this period. Trump was on top in January and February, and then this Tuesday's results show him quickly falling to the bottom. And he seems to have lost his political instincts by putting on Great Gatsby parties and building a golden ballroom in the White House, while SNAP is cut and prices are through the roof. This quick rise and fall shows the impatience of the people with politicians, and it's a warning for Mamdani and his colleagues. And Jahan says, I think overall the election results are more evidence that there is an ideological hunger among the people and an opportune moment for our work. And then he also said, I was very impressed by the analysis about Trump and SNAP by the Pastor Crawford at the United House of Prayer this past Sunday. He said that we should not blame Trump, but also blame those who call themselves Christians, who have not embodied true love, have not been willing to sacrifice everything, including their lives, for their fellow man. He said if Christians took this real responsibility, we would never be in such a position. I interpreted this as a deep moral call to the people to take responsibility for changing society and not default to bourgeois politics. This is a validation for our identification of the Black proletariat as the revolutionary moral agent in American society. And then Alice Talker said, their God, like the white God, is a God of war and destruction for centuries. Happy belated birthday, y'all.
Yes, I think on that note. Oh, yeah.
Oh, could I just introduce you? This is Keith. He was a early member of the free school, but man, we need you back, brother.
1,000% impressed with everything.
Say that again.
1,000% impressed with everything I saw and heard today. My spirit moved. I learned much. And we'll come back and learn some more. Thank you all for doing yourselves. God bless you all.
Yes, thank you.
And I can't wait to be a part of doing this orthodoxy moving the orthopraxy.
Say that one more time.
I can't wait for this orthodoxy moves into orthopraxy. We just busy in the streets and making that ideological change so that you guys can have that we need to make sure the rest of the community that is willing has it. I'm excited. Thank you.
Maybe I'll mention really quickly
maybe actually on this no, the Saturday Free Schools reading group at the 52nd Street Lucia Blackwell Library is now coming on 1 year of reading there. First going out of the year of Baldwin and then transitioning to a King reading group, and now more recently since August, reading the work of Du Bois, specifically the book Dark Water, Voices from Within the Veil, chapter by chapter, poem by poem, story by story. And as we sort of wind down for the end of this year, we didn't just want to have it end with a whimper. We wanted to, really celebrate, end with a bang, but also celebrate the very fact that so many people have come along for this journey and have really been moved in a way that not even reading Baldwin or King had, because of all of the fiction and poetry and also the even poetic nature of so many of these sociological essays. And so our goal, and this is still tentative in terms of the date to be approved and worked out with the library itself, but our goal is to do a public community, say even production based on Dark Water, involving the members of the reading group, reciting and reading aloud the poems and the passages that have been most moving to us, and really involve these reading group members and their families and their children, and also just have these words really heard aloud the way we have really been able to meet on the floor of the library and really animate the whole space around some really, sometimes really riveting conversations about Du Bois that haven't always meant that we agreed, but we would always reach some kind of higher understanding about one another and Du Bois. And we just want to take that to another level. And sort of in the spirit of even the pageant of your birthday, continue in this artistic kind of way of doing politics in among the people. Yeah, because it is, the work itself is so artistic, and the ways that we've been conducting ourselves and having these conversations are so generative.
Can I ask you a question? I think I heard you. You were saying that when we started reading Du Bois, it was more resonant than when we read Baldwin and King. Is that what you were saying?
Something really, the quality of the conversations, which you have been, you witnessed too, I feel like. It's because there was so much poetry, there was so much, even the short story that we've been mentioning, Jesus Christ in Texas, only 11 pages, but really gripping, and I think it really unleashed something. And every, I think, reading group member always ends up feeling like they have to respond to it and share sometimes really vulnerable things about their lives and their experiences and their pain and suffering, but also in a group of people that you could say, honestly, we're pretty strangers to each other in a lot of ways, and yet we really have come to trust our lives and our experiences with one another. And I'll say one last thing, which is that we're hoping that the date of Tuesday, November 25th, around 4 p.m., the same time that we normally meet, but our final meeting is working out as that date. So we hope that is the case. We hope that works out and hope everyone can be there. If there are any changes, we'd let you all know. But yeah, we also have a lot of music to it, I think. We want people to read aloud with the backing music.
We shared our lives for this whole year, all of us, and like Baldwin always talks about, like lovers. We had, it was that intimate and that organic. I don't know, but can I ask a question, Cass?
You may.
Thank you. Do you, and I guess Jerry too, and the three kings. But do we intend to restart it in February, or what do y'all think?
Yeah, I think the library is going to take some time to figure out its bearings, but
Yes,
I think
yes.
sometime in the next 3-4 months they should have their calendar sorted out, and we can restart it. But I'll just also mention, because you were saying, I think we have spent this entire year, actually I think this week is the completion of an entire year of the reading group at the library. And, because of how the reading group has meant, what it has meant, not just to us, but everyone who has been a part of the reading group. We also have a very fitting title to this event where, it's rather long, and we're calling it Dark Water. Actually, we're calling it Dark Water Narratives from Within the Veil, an evening of an evening of poetry, story, music, and song.
Title to be
So-
worked out. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yes, we worked out.
That's more of a subtitle.
Right.
Sounds great.
But yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Actually, Barbara, well, because when the one week I came to be like, oh, the Doc's birthday event is this week, you can make it. She actually said something. Yeah, she was basically like, she says before you said it, but I think I basically said something on one off of, oh, it's meant a lot to do this reading group here. Not all libraries are like this. And then she was like, no, you don't know how much, oh, I said, oh yeah, Doc really loves you. And then she said, no, you don't know how much we love Doc. And she was like, when you guys came to this library, you completely changed it.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say, which is that we have to, we're trying to decide if we want to keep the group going, but also it's like Barbara really wants us to be there next year. It's just that they have to work things out. This mentioned in terms
And the
of-
staff has really gone through a lot with the strike and
Yeah.
everything, and they have to just get themselves together with something. You know.
Yeah, the pressures of the city, the pressures of a society.
Yes. And how all of this impacts working people.
Yeah. And we're learning about through that, even through working with Barbara, I feel like we learn a lot about the actual nature of governance, or the actual nature of like public institutions and what they should mean for the people. So it's been very enriching, I'd say, on our side.
More to come.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you to our viewers. And we're attempting to read more comments in real time because now we know how impactful the live stream is. So we'll see you next week. And
All right. Bye, everybody.